one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, July 28th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 17, in Smiths Falls, 16. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Canada's medal count heading into the next full day of competition is now 9 after Penny Oleksiak became the country's all-time medal leader in Summer Olympics with 6. Now, 2 of them have come in these games. That includes a bronze last night. City News reporter Brent Gunning now with a preview of what's in store today.
When the 6th day of the Tokyo Games begins this evening, there will be plenty for Canadians to keep an eye on. A pair of Canadian rowing teams will go for medals. The men's A final begins at 8:18, while the women's A final starts up at 8:30. Canadians will have a team in each race. Rugby Sevens begin their tournament tonight with an 8:30 start against Brazil. Canada's women's basketball team will be looking for a bounce back against Korea. Tip-off there is set for 9 o'clock. While the men's golf tournament gets going this evening, Corey Connors and Mackenzie Hughes represent Canada in that field. I'm Brent Gunning.
City News time, 9:01, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Below average temperatures and hazy sunshine for most areas today, the high 25 degrees. Tonight, partly cloudy down to 14, and tomorrow we get into periods of rain with the high just 23. For today, the high 25.
And right now in Ottawa, 16 degrees. In Smiths Falls, it's 15. A young man from the East Coast celebrating his 19th birthday in Ottawa, identified as a man who died after a stabbing on Monday night. Eric Hewer from Sydney, Cape Breton, one of 2 men found just before 9 Monday evening at the intersection of Albert and Metcalfe. Now, both men were suffering from stab wounds. Hewer was later pronounced dead in hospital. The other victim described as having non-life-threatening injuries. Now, a GoFundMe page was initially set up to help Eric's mother, Terry, deal with the cost she may incur in the coming weeks. The goal was $25,000. Since it has surpassed $30,000 now, the goal has been upped to $35,000. Ontario Premier Doug Ford scheduled to meet today with evacuees and community leaders affected by the wildfires in the province's northwest. Ford's trip to Thunder Bay comes as First Nations leaders call on the province to declare a state of emergency over the situation. Ford and the Indigenous Affairs Minister, Greg Rickford, slated to meet with Indigenous leaders and wildfire evacuees at a hotel in Thunder Bay. The Premier's schedule also lists him visiting the command centre for Ontario's response to the wildfires. Vaccine maker Pfizer is making a case for a COVID-19 booster shot, but American public health officials have yet to make that call.
Pfizer's chief executive said some studies found the Delta variant is challenging the vaccine's protection after 6 months. A third dose, the company said in an earnings release, would boost protection against the Delta variant by 5 times in younger people and 11 times in older people. In the coming weeks, Pfizer's expected to publish more data so the FDA can decide whether booster shots are necessary. Pfizer also said it expects to ask the FDA by the end of September to authorize the vaccine for use in children between 5 and 11 years old. Aaron Katersky, ABC News, New York.
City News time, 9:03. It cost a lot more to live in the city last month. StatsCan inflation rate 4.1% higher in Ottawa. It compares to a provincial increase of 3.2%. Nationwide, the inflation rate hit 3.1. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Say X,
he's got the Y.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Maybe by the time all of this is said and done, this pandemic, Canadians will have had a chance to sample all of the vaccines. Give me a shot of Astra. I'll take that with a Moderna chaser. I'll see you in a little bit for some Pfizer, okay? Just for the trifecta. Good morning. Welcome to the Rob Snow Show on City News. Here until noon with the news, your reaction to the news, expert insight on the news, interviews with the newsmakers, and your views on the news. That's kind of what we do around here. City News. I see the Trudeau Liberals are, they're taking a victory lap. Okay, hooray for us. We did it. We did it for you. We did it so you didn't have to. And we did it better and sooner than we even thought we could with the vaccination rollout. That was very much the theme of yesterday's talking points from the federal Liberals in anticipation of an election call. Our vaccination program has been a rip-roaring success. Hooray for us. Vote Liberal. And look, even I will admit it looks a lot better now than it used to. Okay, it looks a lot better now than it did through the first 4 months of the year. And you remember, loyal listeners, you listen every day. I know you do. I was really tough on the government at the time. Things were looking bleak in March and April. Where are the vaccines? Where are the vaccines? Why are we trailing the Americans so badly? It was like day after day after day of that and almost nothing but that. So things are much improved, and I will give the government credit for that. But you can't help but wonder, I can't help but wonder, can you call the vaccination program a smashing success? Is it really a great success story if you can't go anywhere? If you can't leave the country? It's a great country, but people do like to travel. See other places. I mean, Elizabeth Payne has a perfect story on the front page of the Ottawa Citizen this morning about a nice couple. They've booked a couple of cruises. They can't go on them. They have a house in Florida. They winter in Florida. Snowbirds. Doesn't look like they'll be able to use it. All because of the mixing and matching of vaccines. Now, look, I have no doubt at all that the mixing and the matching of the vaccines, I'm sure it's just fine. It seems to be working just fine at preventing illness, preventing hospitalizations from COVID-19. But isn't this more evidence of a major drawback to the Trudeau strategy on vaccinations? Canadians who mixed and matched? And I mean, there must be, how many people are in this predicament? Millions, right? Millions of Canadians mixed and matched. Took whatever was available at the time because that's what health officials and governments were telling us to do at the time. Take whatever you can get. Whatever is available, just take it. They're all good. But now as a consequence of that, it seems who the heck knows when or if a lot of people will ever be able to leave the country again. Can't go on a cruise, can't go to your winter home in Florida, can't even go buy cheap milk in Messina, for crying out loud. But yes, the Liberals are doing a victory lap, and on the Quebec side, they're offering third shots. Hey, come and get another one. Eventually they'll match, and maybe you'll be allowed to travel internationally. So anyway, we're going to get into this shortly here. Professor Dawn Bowdish is back. I just love having her on the show. Canada Research Chair in Aging and Immunology from McMaster University in Hamilton. Mixing and matching and mixing again in triplicate. That's just ahead. And on Wednesday mornings, it's time to score your political fix. Okay, you've been dying for a political fix. Well, we have a pair of great political analysts on the show this morning. Garry Keller is back. He's with Strategy Corp. He's on the right side of things. He used to work for a guy named John Baird. And Cam Holmstrom is a lefty of the NDP persuasion. And we have so much to get into today, like Harper derangement syndrome. Alive and well, Harper derangement syndrome. Man, it's weird. It's weird, I tell you. It's weird. It's odd. It's strange. And yet fascinating all at the same time. I mean, here we are. We're likely, what? 3 weeks away, probably, from the current prime minister. His name is not Harper. It's Trudeau. pulling the plug on this minority government just 2 years after the last election for no particular reason at all, other than he thinks he can turn a minority into a majority. We have a government that's running a deficit of close to, what is it, $400 billion? We have inflation is on the run, okay? Gas prices are through the roof. You have to be a millionaire to buy a house in the city. Mr. Trudeau has been prime minister for 6 years. O'Toole can't catch on. Everyone says they love Jagmeet Singh. He's the greatest, and he's stuck in third place. The Greens are self-destructing, and it doesn't even have anything to do with climate change. So you have your pick of all of these stories. And what is the big political story today? Stephen Harper. Yeah, Stephen Harper, the guy who hasn't been prime minister for 6 years. Breaking news, breaking news, breaking news. This is the Canadian press. Breaking news, breaking news. This is the public broadcaster. Breaking news. Stephen Harper appeared on an American podcast that most Canadians have never heard of, and he talked for 45 minutes. Stephen Harper! This is breaking as I'm telling it to you right now. Stephen Harper, Stephen Harper, Stephen Harper speaks. Why is this even news? The guy hasn't been prime minister since 2015. Does a 40-minute interview on an American podcast I guarantee you nobody's heard of. It is the talk of the Canadian political media. All right, then. Stephen Harper. Is the plane in the air, David? Do we have the Parliament Hill webcam? You remember the plane that PSAC hired with the banner? Harper hates me. Harper hates me. Flying over the Peace Tower. Is that plane in the air today? Is it in the air? Meantime, there was an Ipsos poll this week for Global News, and it suggests that most Canadians, they've moved on from the pandemic. Voters have moved on from the pandemic. The pandemic isn't what's going to be driving votes, that the issues that are top of mind for voters right now, if they're thinking of an election at all, the issues that are top of mind for voters right now could be issues in any election. Issues like fix rate is out. Okay, as you heard, the Consumer Price Index. Now, it's a June number. It's almost August. Okay, so again, we're kind of looking in the rearview mirror here. StatsCan continues to tell us you have nothing to worry about with inflation. That if you think the cost of living is going way up, it's your imagination. Gas prices, sure, they're way up year over year, but you remember gas a year ago, they were basically giving the stuff away. David would take his little Mazda to the gas station, $10 to fill the car. Oil prices were below zero. So, of course, oil prices are way up and gas prices are way up. That's not a big surprise. StatsCan said this morning when you take out food inflation and energy inflation, because, hey, nobody needs to drive or eat, then inflation is running at 2.2% annualized. That's the cost of living going up at a pace of about 2.2% a year. Now, we're going to have an economist on the program a little later, okay, to talk about this number, 2.2%. Is this your experience with cost of living increases about 2.2% a year? Is this in line with what you're experiencing in your house? the cost of most things going up around 2.2% or so. Does that sound about right to you? I think if you stopped 100 people in the street, it's my own suspicion. I think if you stopped 100 people in the street and asked them, do you think the cost of things have gone up about 2% in the last year? I think 99 of them would laugh in your face, and the one guy who didn't works for StatsCan. Gas up 32%, transportation up 5%, shelter up more than 4%. Food prices, I'd love to know what's in this food basket. It says their food prices are only up 1.3% year over year. Is that your experience? Food prices up 1.3%. I find it hard to believe. StatsCan says it's true, though. Says we got better prices for beef and fresh vegetables. It also says we paid a lot less for cell phone bills. Consumers paid 21% less for cell phone bills on a year-over-year basis. Somebody's getting a deal. That's something we can get into during our talkback hour. We do every morning around here between 10 and 11 o'clock. Hour of phone calls, hour of opinions. My opinions, your opinions, 750-1310. We can talk about the cost of living. We can talk about the inflation rate. I also want to get into an important local issue this morning, and that is the budget for the Ottawa Police Service. There is a great column in the paper today from Randall Denley. He'll be on our show tomorrow. Randall writing about the police budget. I want to talk about the police budget. I want to hear from you on the police budget. That's about $370 million or so. It's one of the most expensive of all city services. OC Transpose first, the police are second. For every $100 you pay in property tax, $10 of it goes to help run the Ottawa Police Service. And there's a big debate happening in the city right now. Some in the community want to defund the police, want to cut the police budget, put more money into social services. The budget direction from the mayor does no such thing and calls for the budget to be increased by as much as 3%. More police officers would be hired, about 30 new police officers. Here's what I want to get into with you today during the talkback hour. Since amalgamation, ladies and gentlemen, since amalgamation, the budget for the Ottawa Police has increased by almost 200%. Okay, it's almost $400 million a year now to run the Ottawa Police. Used to be about $125 million around amalgamation. City Council, Police Services Board, they all say they want to hear from you. We want to hear from the public. We are going to have a long, detailed public consultation on the budget for the Ottawa Police. I think we have a perfect format for that. Okay, Talkback Hour, Rob Snow Show. $370 million of your money is what it costs to run the Ottawa Police Service for 1 year. What should happen to that budget? Should it go up again? Should it be frozen? Should it be cut? It's your money. It's your police service. So have your say on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
Here at the Thirsty Maiden, we offer a variety of products. So everything from breakfast items, so it's breakfast sandwiches and scones, which have become a staple item here at the cafe. We have an assortment of pastries and cakes and desserts. So we're really big on our dessert bar, which a lot of people come here for. And of course, our delicious coffee beverages. So we do offer not your typical lattes, things like a chocolate banana coconut latte, cinnamon coconut, which is my favorite, and our take on even a pumpkin spice, which we add nutmeg and a dash of cayenne in just to give it a bit of a kick. When you start a business, you don't factor in all the things that could go wrong. You think anything that goes wrong, any failure, it's got to be something on your shoulders. You didn't market right, you're carrying the wrong products, you didn't price your items correctly, all the things, right? But when this pandemic began, things going through my brain I didn't factor in a pandemic. And we were just starting to grow. We were about to blow up, and I think I spent 2 days crying. And then I shut my business down for, I think, a period of 2 or 3 days. And just being at home during that time, I realized this is not me. Anybody that knows me knows I'm a hard worker. I don't give up, and I'm a go-getter. And I started to think, well, I should probably just start clearing out my freezers and posting and seeing who wants to buy what. And that was sort of how I built my momentum back up. I realized that there's still a large number of people that wanted to support us and were looking for the items that I had to provide. So we started there. Then I reopened literally not even 3 or 4 days after I'd closed my doors, and then started doing curbside pickups and deliveries, started doing the deliveries myself, free deliveries to the local community, going as far as Bell's Corners and Corp as well. And that's why we're still here. This community has really kept us going a year into the pandemic. We've had a changeover of staff a couple times now, and situations change, and when you can't offer hours for your employees, you don't blame them when they have to go elsewhere. So I think that's also been one of the challenges is recruiting, training, and then they leave, and then bringing in more people and recruiting. And anybody in this industry will tell you that that's something we deal with on a regular basis, whether or not COVID's in the mix or not. But more so now, because every time there's a lockdown, there's a risk of, will we make it through? And then you lay off more staff. And again, their situations and their circumstances change.
Community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
And 1310 AM.
It's great to have Professor Don Bowdish back on our program, Canada Research Chair in Aging and Immunity, McMaster University. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob. Great to talk to you again.
It's great to hear from you. So we've been interviewing you since the earliest days of this pandemic, and here we are. It's almost August of 2021 now. How do you think the fight is going right now?
I'm so pleased by seeing Canadians step up to the plate to get vaccinated. I have to admit, I really didn't know how that was going to go. And, we hear so much, there's so much confusion, and, were the vaccines made too quickly? Were they not made too quickly? But people have really stepped up to the plate. And I'm so proud. It makes me proud to be a Canadian, actually, to see people stepping up. We're not through yet. One of the areas, as you know, I'm very passionate about is our long-term care and our older adult community. And in Ontario, we're starting to see breakthrough infections there. So we're not out of the woods yet. We still have 1 in 5 of us aren't protected. We know from the UK, which had schools going on right up through July, they had sort of a half-vaxxed population. We know that school might be an area of spread come September for us. So we really have to be vigilant, but at least we're getting to get back to something that looks like our life this summer, aren't we? You get to see people, and if you're vaccinated, you can safely have that backyard barbecue, which I think is really wonderful.
Okay, so there's a lot of uncertainty about travel because of the mixing and matching, and what's approved here might not be approved there, these kinds of things. So the province of Quebec is offering a third additional COVID shot to people who received AstraZeneca so they can travel to countries that don't recognize AstraZeneca as an approved vaccine. What is your thought on a third shot?
It's incredibly frustrating, isn't it? All these people who stepped up to the plate and did exactly what the experts have been recommending. Take the first shot you're offered as quickly as you're offered. And let's be honest, the AstraZeneca vaccine works. This is what got the UK out of their fourth wave. It's a vaccine that works, but some places don't recognize it. And so there's a big debate in my community saying, we have people in other parts of the world who are dying, healthcare workers who are not protected because they don't have vaccines. And these are breeding grounds for the variants that one day will come and affect us Canadians. So is this a good use of this really precious resource On the other hand, I have all the sympathy in the world for people who just want to get back to their lives, or maybe, they have a sick family member, or they, finally get to travel and see people they hadn't seen for a while, and through no fault of their own, and frankly, not supported at all by the science, they're being told that their vaccine isn't recognized. I have a lot of sympathy.
Right. There would be no danger, do you think, Professor?
No. In fact, we love mixing and matching vaccines. I was in this meeting with 12 immunologists when we all had one dose, and we were a mixed bag. Some had AstraZeneca, some had Pfizer, some had Moderna, and not a single person in that audience wanted the same one twice. There was a heated debate about whether, AstraZeneca followed by a mRNA would be better, and if you had the Pfizer, could you get the Moderna to make sure you got a bit of a broader immune response? We love mixing and matching vaccines because it shows our immune system different parts of the virus. And so mixing and matching has been validated through the research. We now know that mixing and matching is a great way of inducing immune response. So it works. It's just this is where the science ends and the politics begins, because it may not be recognized in other places for reasons that are not based on the science.
Okay. So here's what I'm hearing repeatedly from callers who call my program. I'm not crazy about the vaccine still because it's only been approved on an emergency basis or an interim basis. It hasn't been officially approved. What do you think about that? What's your take on that?
And an American perspective. So let's be clear. A lot of the news we get and a lot of the stuff that's shared on our social media and stuff like that comes from the U.S. And so in Canada, that's not a thing. We don't have this interim use, emergent use authorization. In the Canadian approval process goes through a Health Canada approval process, and it goes through the exact same approval process as any other vaccine. The differences were it was expedited. There was no when the data came in, everybody dropped everything to review the data, as opposed to, in another less frantic time when people would have had to schedule meetings and get all that together. And we also did have a government act that allowed the government to buy vaccines or drugs that looks like they might be promising in COVID. So they could buy them, but they weren't allowed to use them until they were approved. And this was sort of to help us make sure that as soon as things got approved, we could put them in use. So the wording around the FDA and their approval process was different, but that's an American, not a Canadian thing. So I trust Health Canada. They've reviewed the data independently. They reviewed it quickly. They had their best and brightest on it. Some of my colleagues were advisors for some of these reviews. So that, I hope, will put your listeners' mind at ease.
Okay. What are we to make of the fact that people who are vaccinated can still carry the virus and potentially even pass the virus on to other people?
Yes.
How unusual is that? Is that novel? Is that unusual?
This is the perfect vaccine gets that virus 100% of the time, and you never carry it. That actually doesn't happen so much in the real world. Generally, once you get the virus in you, sometimes it takes a little while for those antibodies and those immune cells to start doing their thing. So often you have this time where you may not have symptoms and you're carrying a little bit of the virus. Now, with our Delta variant, which is the one that we have circulating, and frankly, there's some concerns that have been growing in Ontario, it's pretty good at evading low levels of these antibody responses. So, and it can kind of hang out there. It also is carried at about 1,000 times the amount of virus as the other viruses. So what we're starting to see, and unfortunately in the U.S. where there's such high levels of this virus, it's becoming a huge problem, is that even people who are vaccinated, maybe they don't have symptoms, maybe they have mild symptoms, but they can still sometimes carry that virus. And so although I would say, our anxiety has to be proportionate to the risk. So I think if you're vaccinated and you're hanging out with a bunch of vaccinated people, your level of concern should be low. If you're unvaccinated, you might want to keep your level of concern a little bit higher, because even your vaccinated friends could hypothetically pass this virus to you.
Thank you. Again, great to hear from you.
Great. Take care.
Stay well. Professor Dawn Bowdish is a Canada Research Chair in Aging and Immunity, and she's with McMaster University. Your political fix. After the news on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, July 28th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now, fog advisory is now over for the region. In Ottawa, 18 degrees. In Smiths Falls, 16. And here's what's making news this hour. Latest inflation figures show the cost of living in Ottawa was the highest in the country, at least by increase. StatsCan says it cost 4.1% more to live in Ottawa in June compared to June of last year. Compare that to the lowest rate of inflation in our country, Yellowknife, at just 1.3%. Across Canada, the inflation rate in June, 3.1%. One of the big reasons, the rising price of gasoline. Concern growing in Japan while the Olympics are basically in a bubble. Outside that bubble, the infection rate is soaring. Today, Tokyo reporting the largest single-day increase in case numbers with 3,177. Smiths Falls police continue their search for a 38-year-old man who was reported missing back on July 13th. Police believe that 38-year-old Greg Moriah left Church Street residence in Smiths Falls on July 12th, but he hasn't returned. He's described as white, 6'3", red hair and a beard, last seen wearing a green button-up long-sleeve shirt. City News Time, 9:33. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
It's time to score your political fix. And we're welcoming back Garry Keller, Vice President, Strategy Corp. He's more on the right side of things. Good morning, Garry.
Good morning, Rob. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great, thank you.
Great. Cam Holmstrom, more on the left side of things. He's with Bluesky. Good morning, Cam.
Good morning, Rob.
So this is kind of, I'm in Ottawa, but this is sort of, we have assembled our Northern Ontario caucus today. Garry, you're in North Bay, is that right? You're in North Bay?
That's right.
You're in North Bay?
Getting a little cottage time in. If you will.
Cottage time. Okay. I've heard North Bay is nice. You haven't been carried away by the flies or anything like that?
No.
They can be quite large
lovely
up there, as I understand.
They do, but this time of year, it's great.
Okay. And Cameron, you're in Kenora.
I still am sitting up on the island here on the lake, just admiring the beauty. One last week before I head back east to everything else.
Mm-hmm. And back to life and back to reality. All right. Harper. He haunts us still. We have a little bit of Stephen Harper. What is this one, David? Is this the inflation? Is he talking about inflation? Yeah, he's talking about the economy and the Trudeau government's response to the pandemic, which the fiscal response, the relief packages and the CERB, these sorts of things, which he called in this interview with this American podcaster, says the Trudeau government's response to the pandemic was overkill. Roll tape, please.
It's not a good reaction. It's been overkill. A lot of spending was necessary, but first of all, it's had a different purpose. Remember, the spending back in 08-09 was to, quote, stimulate the economy. We had a free fall of the financial system. Economic activity was freezing or plummeting.
Yep.
This time, the purpose of the spending has been to sustain incomes without stimulating the economy.
So you want to help people?
So people could stop working and not work. And so you have this extraordinary level, and now you have this extraordinary mentality. I think it's extraordinary, where government's just saying, look, this extraordinary economic policy, macroeconomic policy, has saved us from a complete crash during the pandemic, so why can't we just do this forever? You know, look, this is not all new. I tell people, for those of us now who have the gray hair and remember, this is all the late 60s, 1970s over again, just at a pace that is incredibly faster and going to lead to bad consequences much more quickly.
What are some of the consequences?
Well, the first and obvious one is inflation.
Okay, so just a little bit. The podcast is called American Optimist with Joe Lonsdale. So I guess here's the thing, okay? He hasn't been prime minister for 6 years, yet every time he speaks lately, it's in the news. Garry, how do you explain this recent fascination with Stephen Joseph Harper?
Well, I don't think it's a recent fascination. I think it's been a fascination ever since he's left office. about his views, and when he speaks up, it tends to make news. Now, to be fair, when other prime ministers have spoken up in the past, those views sometimes get covered by the media as well. But for myself, on the sort of right side of the spectrum, it's amusing for me to see how much Stephen Harper lives rent-free in the heads of his opponents. Look, Stephen Harper, he's a polarizing individual to some Canadians. At the end of the day, he is a private citizen. But the challenge, of course, for the Conservative Party writ large is that every time Harper says something, you get this media and the opponents on the left that will want to try to blow it out of proportion. That Stephen Harper is secretly directing the Conservative Party's policies and platform, and Harper is lurking and all of this sort of stuff. Of course, for Aaron O'Toole, I'm sure he's not wild, and the folks around Aaron O'Toole aren't wild to see Stephen Harper speaking up publicly on issues because they know that some in the media and some of his opponents on the left will try to take advantage of that. But, going back to Harper's comments, in some ways, he's right. In Budget 2021, there's a lot of unfocused spending that isn't necessarily directly related to pandemic spending. When you talk to senior public servants, there's billions of dollars of spending sloshing around that has been announced, no terms and conditions established or actual programs, and they're actually building the plane as they fly it, if you will, to create the terms and conditions and programs to get that money out the door. The parliamentary budget officer says it'll take until 2070 to balance the budget in a recent report. I'm going to be long gone by that point.
Sure.
There's a lot of senior officials at the Department of Finance who have retired, some of whom would be really concerned about the tax the government is taking. So in some ways, Stephen Harper is right. The challenge, of course, as I said, for Conservatives is the timing probably isn't great because they know people will try to take advantage.
Yeah, I find it interesting. I just did a Control-F search on the front page of National Newswatch, for example, just one of the many political websites out there, National Newswatch. So Justin Trudeau's name appears 24 times on the front page. Aaron O'Toole's name appears twice. And Stephen Harper's name is there 12 times this morning, right? 12 times. Harper. Cam, what do you think about Harper making news like this? What do you think about him?
Well, I would say it's twofold.
Okay.
One, I won't concede to Jerry here that Harper's right because he's not. The fact is, whenever I hear this, we spend too much, I just say, tell me what it is you'd cut then. Tell me what thing that we've done that you would take away, that you would leave people in a position. Because one thing Harper did say is correct. This was about maintaining, about keeping people going. So again, who would you have let fall? And I think that's something we never heard a good answer to. But when it comes to the actual why Harper, part of what Jerry said is right, that yes, when a former prime minister speaks, people pay attention. You know that whenever Jean Chrétien or Paul Martin speak, and it's not something that necessarily jives with what the current prime minister is doing, there are cringes in the PMO. So that's just part of life. The difference here, though, is that Stephen Harper holds a unique position. In fact, that this Conservative Party is a party that he built, that he created, right? And it was his sheer will that held this thing together for so long. And that was always the question when he left. What would it look like without him? Who would be able to hold the whole thing together? Who would be able to command that kind of control? And so far, the answer has been no one. And that's the problem, is that it's not that Stephen Harper is going to come back or anything like that. Trust me, making comments like that, those to me don't come off as someone who's looking to make a comeback in politics. That's just Monday morning quarterbacking by someone who has his own personal grudges against the other side. So be it, whatever. But the problem is that neither Andrew Scheer nor Aaron O'Toole have been able to take the Conservative Party and make it their own and put them and rise to a position where they've been able to not necessarily replace Harper, but put themselves on that level. And as a result, who is seen as the biggest figure in the Conservative moment to this day? It's Stephen Harper. Yeah, okay. You kind of can't get around that, and that's part of the problem for O'Toole.
Okay, so I want to get at this. You don't think there's any chance he's coming back?
No, I don't. No. I don't think he's going out there doing that kind of stuff if he's thinking about making a comeback. I think he's kind of happy being on the sidelines and having his say and not having to worry about minding his P's and Q's.
not having to worry about polls and all of this other stuff, right? Yeah. Garry, he's not coming back, right?
There's zero chance.
Zero chance. Okay. All right.
Look, he's retired from politics.
He's retired from politics. Okay.
He's doing his own thing, and I'm sure he's making a comfortable living, not having to deal with the 24/7 of politics. And it is a 24/7 job for anybody involved in politics, magnified tenfold when you're the prime minister, 100-fold when you're the prime minister. Why would he want that? No, he's not coming back. But to Cam's point, when he does speak, he is a polarizing individual, and he does get attention. And like I said, I'm sure there's folks who aren't wild about it in the leader's office over in Center Block, seeing Harper's name splashed across National News Watch or any other
CBC News, whatever. Yeah. Okay. Well, let me ask you this, Cam. You take this first, because it's nice to, we were just playing what if. Okay. What if it was Harper was the leader right now? What if Harper was leading the Conservative Party right now? Say there was some kind of palace coup, okay? And O'Toole, you're out of here, buddy.
You're also bring back Jack Layton.
You're not getting. Hey, let's bring back Giuseppe. What's he doing?
So we bring back Michael Ignatieff, please.
Bring back Michael Ignatieff. Yeah. Could we recall our ambassador, Mr. Dion? Where is Mr. Dion? Would the Conservative Party be doing better under Harper right now than it is doing under O'Toole right now?
Well, as much as I don't like playing the hypotheticals on this, I would argue, they'd be doing better. Would they be ahead and winning? I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think that they're in the mindset of where the public's at. But that being said, I don't think you'd see the splintering. I don't think you'd see the PPCs out there polling better, or the Mavericks on the scene if Stephen Harper were still in that position. I think he would have held it all together better. So instead of sitting in the high 20s into maybe 30s, they might be sitting in the low 30s instead. And let's be honest, it's true that Stephen Harper rhetorically it would be a stronger leader. He would give this prime minister still more challenges when it comes to actual fighting back or putting out something else to combat what he's putting out. He would make a stronger opponent than the current Conservative leader.
All right, what do you think, Garry?
Well, look, first premise, I think it's actually unfair to try to compare, Stephen Harper's leadership to current leadership, whether it was Andrew Scheer or Erin O'Toole. But that is going to happen. People are going to make those comparisons.
We're doing that right now.
I know. I hate to do that. But, Stephen Harper, while he is seen as the guy who, created the party and was clearly identified as the head of that party, at the end of his tenure, he was a polarizing individual. And I'm not sure that he, Canadians, I think, have moved on from when he was prime minister, as much as I think he was a great prime minister. I think Canadians have moved on, and I really don't see how playing this game is actually helpful in the long run.
Nobody said it had to be helpful. It's just fun. It's just fun. Okay.
I know, but right. People have moved on, and I think actually these thoughts that he might come back or whatever, when there's no basis or example in reality of that. I actually think it's disservice to the wider political debate in the country.
All right. Well, when we come back, we'll turn our attention to what could be an election campaign, maybe in 3 weeks or so. We'll talk about it. It's your political fix. Garry, Keller, Cam Holmstrom. I'm Rob Snow. This is the Rob Snow Show on the City News.
It's a space that needs to be lived in. It's a space that people, have to have an experience of more than just art on the walls. I think, yes, the art on the walls is fun, and it's fun to walk around and see all the beautiful things, and the way Dominic and Edith have curated the gallery is certainly something worth seeing. But coming by and asking questions, again, to Dominic's point of view is, interrupt him, ask questions. I'm here on most of the days too. We have Luce that comes in, Nancy that comes in. So yeah, we have quite a few opportunities for people to come in and see the process, and of course ask a few questions. It's a great space. Basically, the one event that we did do, is the jazz shows, the jazz and blues shows. And I think the weird thing to let you know is that the acoustics in here are really amazing. I think that was the first thing that blew me away when we started doing shows, or when I was helping out with the shows. And the other part of the business too is we do rent it out for special occasions too. So a few weddings, birthday parties, product launches, that kind of thing. So they're also a lot of fun. We do have one artist that's from the States, but of the 30-odd artists, the rest are from either Quebec, Ontario, and one beautiful woman from BC. But yeah, it's definitely part of the philosophy to maintain and canvas and show the beauty that we have in our backyard. You have the very, very strong personalities in Edith and Dominic, of course. It's wonderful to see how that actually balances out in the rest of the gallery. Without necessarily being, an objective, we basically have half female artists and half male artists in this gallery. But I can't say it's anything more than choosing the best people, and that's just the way it is. And I love that. I think it's great. You go through here and you're like, wow, it's all pretty cool. And yep, it's half are women and half are men. It's cool. Like everyone else, we didn't know what to think, right? It's overwhelming at first. You just know that things are closed. And now you're trying to figure out what you do during that downtime, which I think everyone did. And I think in March, the first close, the first shutdown, it was a lot of actually recuperating and resting and not worrying too much on the spot. It's running a gallery is a bit like running a marathon with sprints. So there comes a time where, it's actually nice to just take a break. And then you wake up and realize that, okay, now it's time to wake up and deal with this new reality. From my perspective anyways, I think a gallery can be overwhelming, and I like to make it fun. So you're going to come in, I'll ask you questions, I might even joke around with you. The most people come here, they're not really going to buy art, but they could have a fun time and talk about it, right? And one of the things the gallery does offer is for local purchases, we'll be happy to drive it to your house and hang it for you.
Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
We're back, part two, your political fix, with Garry Keller from Strategy Corp and Cam Holmstrom from Bluesky. So let's talk about the election, probably called in the middle of August, third week of September be voting day. Everyone agreed on that? Going to be an election, more or less, in around there. Yeah. Okay.
A little later, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's on, right? It's on. It's happening. No doubt. Okay.
Well, it's on if we're at the current levels of COVID and we don't face a fourth wave. I think if something spirals out of control, that will give pause for thought. But
okay. All right. Okay. All right. Well, let's work from the assumption that it's on or the whole show is ruined. Okay. Right. According to a recent Ipsos poll for Global News, the current top-of-mind issues Canadians are now thinking about the most are healthcare, affordability, the cost of living, climate change, and the economy, largely remaining the same from 2 years ago. End quote. Does this mean Canadian voters have moved on from the pandemic? And if they have, what is the ballot question for this election, Garry Keller?
So I think, it's my previous comments about COVID. I think a combination of both the summer months, we Canadians, we get such few opportunities to get outside and enjoy the great outdoors and the nice weather. A combination of that and the fact that, first doses have, gone from a slow rollout in January, February, and March to increased rollout right across the country and in every province. It's giving Canadians some hope, optimism that we might be through the worst of the pandemic. Just as an example, I've noticed over the last, month or so, the number of ads for travel and tourism companies out there has just skyrocketed. And so I think that's certainly an indicator that people are looking forward. They're trying to look forward. They're trying to look back to trying to look forward to a sense of normalcy. And so as a result, on voting issues, I think that has been a natural outcome of that people are looking forward, getting back their lives back to normal. And so while the healthcare issue that was mentioned in the poll might be tracking towards COVID-related pandemic and how governments handle that, the other issues are sort of bread and butter issues that voters have, as you noted, in the past couple of years, pre-pandemic, have been focused on. So I think for Liberals, the ballot question will be, if we don't face another wave, of course, what do you want Canada to look like post-pandemic? Do you want to go forward with us or go backwards with the other guys? We need a majority government to help shape that future. And Parliament isn't working. Give us tools to do the job. I'd argue that Parliament is working and has been working, but I think that has been their line. When any time that they've seen an opportunity to call action, you see this Parliament isn't working line come forward.
Okay.
I think for Conservatives, it's a referendum on the Trudeau government's record over the last 6 years. They made bold promises, but they haven't delivered or said one thing and done another. Is this the kind of government you can trust to shape the future? And you see folks like Pierre Poilievre and others talk about the cost of inflation, the cost of living going up, and those are things that Conservatives will want to lay at the feet of Justin Trudeau. For the NDP, I just think they'll want to try to portray themselves as one.
Oh, I think we're Gary, you're dropping out. Gary, you're dropping out there, so I'm going to go to Cam. Yeah. So, Cam, I mean, this Ipsos poll, I find it interesting because, okay, healthcare, the economy, climate change, affordability, cost of living issues, I mean, they could be an issue in any Canadian election at any time. The suggestion is being made, well, people have moved on from the pandemic. So what's the ballot question then?
See, here's the thing. The actual COVID response is probably not going to be the ballot question, but COVID is coloring all of those topics, and not just the healthcare one. Let's face it, having come through COVID, the economy is different. The economy, we've seen major shifts in where people work, how people work, the expectations of wages and all of that. So to me, when I hear that people are worried about these things, of course they are, but it's worried about through the experience they've just gone through and not wanting to repeat that experience. So to me, I think this does not fit well into the Conservatives' worldview. I think it does become a question of, yes, who's best to lead you going forward? I don't think the Conservatives are necessarily going to like that answer. But that being said, I don't know if the Liberals should feel so confident in that as well, because of the reasons that Garry laid out about broken promises and all that. Yes, the Liberals led us through this, were the government when this came down, when this crisis happened. They're the ones who happened to be government when it happened. That doesn't mean that when people given the choice will want that same leadership to take them through the rest of it. And if they're assuming that people are going to be grateful for the COVID response and that'll help them ride a wave to a majority government, they could be very sorely mistaken. And I think actually Gerald Bricker of Ipsos had a nice Twitter thread on that a couple days ago where he laid that out very well. And I think that's one of the reasons why you're seeing the NDP rising on this, is because, again, these are areas that really speak to their ethos, their mindset, and their approach. So it's, again, do you believe the real thing, or do you believe the people who kind of fake left and go right? So we'll see what happens. But I think the thing that's coming out of this, though, is that for a lot of people, is that this has been that generational life-affecting moment, and they've learned a lot of lessons coming from this, and they're expecting their political leaders to kind of reflect that and not give them back the same pablum talking points that they have for the past 20 years. And if they do, well, they're not going to be rewarded for it.
All right. Very quickly, we only have about, 2 minutes left here, so about a minute each. We talked a little bit about this yesterday with an expert from Hill and Knowlton, but I want to get your take as well. Mr. Singh has 691,000 followers on TikTok, and his videos have been liked more than 6 million times, okay, on TikTok. How does he make that into votes? How does he turn those views, those clicks, those likes into votes? Garry.
Yeah, that's a really great question, because I don't think we've seen a political party or a leader try to take advantage of TikTok as an electoral device to try to drive voters. It will certainly drive eyeballs towards him. The challenge for the New Democrats is turning those into actual voters. But you know what? New technology provides the opportunity to do that. Some thought Twitter might do that, but Twitter has become not that. It has become an arguing point for a lot of partisans who have established positions or an outlet to get media out. Facebook still, I think, remains the gold standard from social media, but it'll be interesting to see what the NDP try to use to try to convince those young voters, those young eyeballs, into NDP voters.
Okay. Cam?
You know what? The same was said about Facebook. The same was said about Twitter. I guarantee you at some point in time, the same was said about television, radio, and newspapers as well, and heck, maybe even stone tablets. You know, the fact is that, yes, there is no direct link to say, you saw this, therefore I grabbed you and got you to the polls. But that's the same thing for any other communications method. And throughout time, all these things have shown their value. And the fact is, if you're getting almost 700,000 people following you and over 6 million people watching what you have to say, you are getting their attention, and they wanted to hear what you have to say. That's your first foot in the door. The next thing is to try to take that engagement to the next level. How exactly they go about it, I'm pretty sure they've got a plan in mind as to how they're going to do it. Will it result in more votes? Well, we're going to see. But you know what? We're not going to know till after the fact. And this, to me, is a very interesting case study, because what I find fascinating about it that the NDP are the only ones in this space. I think that's the interesting thing.
Okay.
It's not like we're the other social media where everyone's competing. They're by themselves, and you may kind of wonder if that's going to be a key edge coming into the campaign or not.
Great to talk to both of you today. Enjoy Northern Ontario.
Always do.
Bye-bye.
Great to be with you.
Yeah, Gary Keller from Strategy Corp, Conservative. He's in North Bay. Cam Holmstrom, New Democrat. He's in Kenora. Rob Snow here in Ottawa, and the Talkback Hour is coming up. We're going to talk about the budget for the Ottawa Police. I hope, with your help, at 750-1310 here on City News.
WW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 1011 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, July 28th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 18 degrees. It's 16 in Smiths Falls. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. As the COVID-19 vaccination rollout continues to make significant progress, one expert from McMaster University addressing concerns among those still hesitant to get their shot. Here's City News reporter Alex Gouge.
Dawn Bowdish is the Canadian Research Chair in Aging and Immunity at McMaster University. She says mixing the AstraZeneca vaccine with an mRNA could provide boosted protection from COVID-19. She tells the Rob Snow Show why some countries are likely not recognizing mixed doses as fully vaccinated.
Mixing and matching has been validated through the research. We now know that mixing and matching is a great way of inducing immune response. So it works. It's just, this is where the science ends and the politics begins, because it may not be recognized in other places for reasons that are not based on the science.
Bowdish adds Canada doesn't have emergency approval for vaccines like the United States does, and the same approval process at Health Canada for the COVID shot is in place for any other vaccine. She says the difference is everyone dropped everything to expedite the COVID-19 vaccine due to its immediate need. Alex Gouge, City News.
City News time at 10:02, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Below average temperatures and hazy sunshine for most areas today, the high 25 degrees. Tonight, partly cloudy down to 14, and tomorrow we get into periods of rain with the high just 23. For today, the high 25.
And right now it's 18 degrees in Ottawa, 16 in Smiths Falls. If you noticed prices at the grocery store or the gas pump in particular a little more expensive than they were this time last year, you're absolutely right. Cost of living inflation index is running at the highest level in some 10 years. That is especially noticeable in Ottawa. It had the highest rate of any centre last month for inflation across Canada at 4.1%. Our senior business editor, Mike Epple, has a look at the national number.
The cost of living continuing to show price pressures on the rise in the Canadian economy with the reopening of the economy compared to last year's shutdown in the second quarter of the year. The Consumer Price Index, tabulated by StatsCan, up by 3.1%, which was down a little bit from the May results. Stats Canada pointing out you've got these vagaries and big price swings year to year. The price for gasoline, for example, up more than 30% from a year ago. Now, you take out gas prices and some food prices, and the inflation rate is a much more modest 2.2%, which is within the Bank of Canada's target. So no need for the central bank to do anything with monetary policy in the short term. At the Business Centre, I'm Mike Epple.
City News time at 10:04. After a bronze medal performance in the pool for Canada's lone medal on day 5 of the Olympics, Brent Gunning with a rundown on the schedule tonight, day 6.
A pair of Canada's most high-profile teams will be in action later tonight at the Tokyo Games. Canada's women's basketball will be looking for a bounce back as they take on Korea at 9 o'clock, while the rugby women's 7 team will start their tournament. They have a date with Brazil this evening. Other things to keep an eye on include the men's golf tournament that gets going. A pair of Canadians are in contention there in Corey Connors and Mackenzie Hughes. They will tee off after 7 o'clock this evening. And a pair of Canadian rowing teams will go for a medal tonight. For Sportsnet 590 The Fan, I'm Brent Gunning.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in Newfoundland and Labrador today making announcements about childcare and Muskrat Falls. According to the Canadian press, Trudeau will announce in St. John's that Newfoundland and Labrador will become the 4th province to strike a deal with Ottawa for $10 a day childcare. Provincial government media release says he will also join the Premier for an announcement about managing electricity rates. The province expected to spike with those rates because of the over-budget Muskrat Falls project. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
This is the question that I have for you for this hour of the program, okay? Should the budget for the Ottawa Police Service be increased, frozen, or cut? Okay. Should the budget for the Ottawa Police be increased, be frozen, or be cut? We're going to do a hot local issue. This is a hot local issue, this police budget. We had the chair of the Ottawa Police Services Board on our program yesterday, Councillor Diane Deans, and we thank her for being generous with her time. There was a lengthy meeting of the Ottawa Police Services Board this week to debate this budget, and it's probably the most controversial police budget, certainly that I can remember in all my years of covering municipal affairs. And I say that because it used to be, there was a time in the city of Ottawa when it was pretty much a slam dunk that the police budget would go up. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. It was just a matter of, how much is the police budget going to come up? The direction would come from the top, from the mayor, in collaboration, I guess, with the city manager. This is politically what we think the public can stomach for an annual property tax increase. This is going to be the police's share of that property tax increase, and the police budget will go up by that amount. Sometimes the police wanted more than the mayor was willing to give, then they would have to show some restraint. But the police budget never went down. It only ever went up. It never went down. It was never frozen. There's no such thing as zero means zero for the Ottawa Police Service. Automatic. Always automatic. Go up. That has been the MO since amalgamation. And the budget for the Ottawa Police Service since amalgamation is up. And it's up significantly, folks. It's up almost 200% since amalgamation. I don't have the precise number. It's up by in the neighborhood of 180, 190%. Around there. Let's just call it 200, okay? Because it's such a nice round number. We'll round up, okay? And there was a time when it was a political winner for municipal politicians to boast about hiring more police officers. Because that's what the public wanted. That's what residents wanted. They did want more police officers in their neighborhoods, in their communities, more visible. There was a time when this mayor, Mr. Watson, would boast about hiring more police officers. Because that's what residents wanted at the time. Taxpayers of Ottawa, for many, many years, didn't think we had enough police. Didn't think we had enough police officers on patrol, or that they weren't being deployed the right way. So there was a hiring push. The city hired more police officers. Got back to a more neighborhood policing model, more community policing model. But that was then, and here we are. It's 2021. And some, not all, but some, and they're very well organized, want to rethink of policing in Ottawa. And not just in Ottawa. This is a North American thing. Call it whatever you want. Defund the police, call it whatever you want. There is a line of thinking that putting more money into the police service is a bad idea. And that money could be better spent somewhere else, namely social welfare programs. I really encourage you to read Randall Denley's column in the paper today, where he hits on all of this, and he's going to be on our show tomorrow. Put more money into, take your pick, more mental health support, more housing supports, get people off the streets, more help for drug addiction, substance abuse problems, and there will be less interaction with police. If we directed some of that money that would typically go into the police service instead into other services, social welfare services, we'd all be better off. And maybe we wouldn't have some of the problems that we have seen over the last few years. Because police officers are being asked to do things that they're not really well equipped to handle. Police officers are not mental health experts. Police officers are not counselors. Police officers are not social workers. So the thinking goes, perhaps if we want to put some more resources into those areas, we wouldn't have as many problematic interactions between police and people in crisis. People in crisis for one reason or another. And in addition to that, I don't have to tell you, there are a lot of questions just surrounding the workplace culture of the Ottawa Police Service. Just given the number of sworn officers who have found themselves under investigation and charged with various offenses. Some are wondering, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, anything you haven't heard on the news, okay? We all know that there are questions being asked. Is there a workplace culture problem with the Ottawa Police Service? And if the answer is yes to that question, then how can you justify increasing the police budget by as much as another 3%? Because it could go up by as much as another 3%. It's no guarantee. But that's why I'm asking you this morning what should happen to the budget for the Ottawa Police Service. Okay? Should it be increased? Should it be frozen? Like a zero means zero? Should it be cut? Should it be cut? What do you think? Where do you land on that? At 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. It is the second most expensive city service, okay, every year. Only OC Transpo costs more to operate than the Ottawa Police Service. So it's very important that you have your say on this, okay? There are local politicians who are listening. If they're not listening, I can tell you their people are listening. And they'd be very interested to know what you think about this. Barry in Ottawa. Good morning, Barry. You're on City News.
Good morning, Rob.
Morning, Barry.
Yeah, I think...
should the Ottawa police budget be increased, frozen, or cut?
Well, I haven't seen anything about it and haven't looked into whether they show anywhere online or anything like that, what they're spending money on, Rob.
I'll get into that as I make my way through the program, but most of it is salary. Most of it is, $7 out of $10 goes to pay salaries and benefits, sir. So.
Well, I don't know what salary range they have for them. They have to be well paid to do the job.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
But as long as they're not spending it on buying more armored cars or, things they don't really use or need.
Right.
I don't think they have to equip every police car with radar because they don't seem to be using that to its full efficiency, stopping speeders.
Right.
But just overall, I think maybe it should be frozen and
frozen. Okay.
Reviewed more by the city and maybe even privately, or even having opinion polls with the people. Like a referendum maybe, or just an opinion.
Well, when I had Councillor Deans on the show yesterday, Barry, she said, we want to talk to the citizens. We want to talk to the residents. We know that opinion is not unanimous when it comes to the budget for the Ottawa Police. We want to hear from as many people as we possibly can. That's why I'm doing this show today. I want to be part of that consultation process.
Myself, Rob, I think from all the stuff you hear lately with some cops or some police, I don't like calling them cops.
Sure.
Well, that's only American TV shows that do that. The police training, I think it should be reviewed maybe because of, I don't know what percentage of them are bad or some of the bad things that some officers have done supposedly in the line of duty.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to go into details, but when you hear about somebody being beaten up and dying and then find out that the police officer was wearing metal type gloves, like if something like that that's not really required by them or they buy themselves, then that to me is a warning sign that their training isn't good enough or some things.
But on the budget, just focusing right now on the budget, you would say you'd have no problem if the police budget was frozen, right?
No, I wouldn't,
All right, good, Barry. Thank you. You've got us going this morning, Barry. Great to hear from you. 750-1310. We're talking about a local issue this morning. What should happen to the budget for the Ottawa Police? Important issue that we all need to pay attention to. Should the police budget go up? The mayor says the police budget can go up by as much as 3%. What do you think? Should it be frozen, just keep it where it's at? Or should we cut the budget for the Ottawa Police Service? What do you think about that? 750-1310, Talk Back Hour. The city says it wants to hear from you. Here's your opportunity. The Rob Snow Show on City News.
Ottawa Markets was created by the City of Ottawa to help rejuvenate the outdoor markets program in Byward and Wellington West, where we have the Parkdale Market. And so we set to work on bringing in the right team with the right experience and reaching out to local vendors and local farmers, because we knew when we did a survey of our customers that was the one thing that was really important to them, both at Byward and in Parkdale, is to start bringing back that local product. And that's what you can see behind us here at the York Street Farmers Market. We put in place a Farmers First policy, which means that we will deal with farmers from the region first. And we're going to give them priority in terms of placement. They're going to have reduced fees in coming to the market. We've also made it free for any farm that's been in operation for under 2 years. The market also put in place a BIPOC initiative, which is a Black, Indigenous, and Peoples of Color initiative, which provides grants and support opportunities for folks from those communities to come on out to the market to reduce systemic barriers that have existed. As a farmer's market, we can have a variety of vendors here, from an artisan to a microprocessor who's taking local ingredients and putting them into a product in a kitchen and selling that, to breweries and distilleries this year, which were changes that the province put in place, which allowed us to bring in a few of those vendors as well, which I think is a nice surprise for people sometimes at 9 in the morning after a pandemic. But it's been going really well, and some of the breweries have been pretty appreciative, because for them, whether it just be doing delivery or curbside pickup, it gives them an opportunity to come back out and talk with their customer and talk about what makes their product so special. Throughout the market, the health and safety protocols that you're going to see, masks are still required. That is obviously the case, and you'll see a number of signs noting that around the area. We've got a number of hand sanitizer units, I call them droids, throughout the area that you can sort of just grab a pump or a squeeze wherever you go. But what we've also had to do is reduce the number of vendor spaces we have in the market by 50%. This ensures that we can guarantee that our vendors are going to have that distance, that we can, have a little bit better flow around the market. But what we also did was, as I said, we created the York Street Farmers Market, which is just microprocessors and local producers only, and that's on Saturdays. In Parkdale, we launched the night market, which is bringing a lot of the same content, but in the evening, and residents are sort of spilling out into the park. So we're looking at what we're doing as trying to support, create, and enhance public space for the residents of the city. It's been great. The community, which is what this market is here for, and then as tourism comes back, obviously we'll welcome all visitors. But the response has been really great. The community's come on out, they're speaking with their wallets and their dollars, which obviously at the end of the day, we want a great experience, but it needs to be a valuable economic opportunity for the vendors who are coming out.
Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
The hot question of the day is, what should happen to the budget for the Ottawa Police? Okay. Should it be increased? Should it be frozen? Should it be cut? I was going through the police budget document. You should as well. If it interests you, it's publicly available. I mean, it's your money after all. But I was trying to familiarize myself with it because it's far from being finalized. And I wanted to get a better idea of, how much money we're talking about, where the money would be going, what the Ottawa Police Service says about some of the budget pressures it's facing right now. So these are some of the key talking points from the police services point of view. The gross operating budget would be $376 million, and the net operating budget would be $332 million. $332 million, $376 million. That's what it's costing these days to run the Ottawa Police Service for 1 year. So you think about it this way. 1 out of every $10 you pay in property tax goes to run the Ottawa Police Service for 1 year. And for the average urban household, it's $644 a year. That's your share to operate the Ottawa Police Service for a year. Now, there's also a capital budget. New police stations need to be built. New vehicles need to be purchased on an annual basis. They have to, make renovations, upgrades to facilities. There's always new IT infrastructure to buy. New computers, new software. The software bill for the police service is it's like $4 million a year or something, like just software. But the budget for all of that is about $24 million. And just for new vehicles, they call it fleet replacement. We spend about $4.5 million a year replacing police vehicles in the city of Ottawa. And as for the payroll itself, how many people work for the Ottawa Police? It breaks down like this. They have about 1,200 sworn police officers, and then they have about 600 other employees of the Ottawa Police Service, civilian employees. So total payroll is about 1,800, give or take. Probably a little bit higher than 1,800, a few dozen higher, not much more than that. And the police service says that represents one police force member for every 549 residents in Ottawa. One police service member for every 549 residents in Ottawa. And the police say that's among the lowest in Canada. And the plan right now is to add 30 new police officers throughout the course of the year. The service calls them growth officers. The city is growing. At the same time, police officers are retiring. And to keep up with growth, we need to hire 30 new police officers. And to do that, to hire, train, and equip just 30 new police officers costs $4 million, $3.9 million. And just the compensation is $1.4 million, which is $46,666 for each new hire, just in compensation. So I guess you could say that's the starting pay for a constable at the Ottawa Police Service, for a rookie constable, $46,000 a year. But what should happen to the budget? Should it go up? Budget direction says it can go up as much as 3%. It's not a done deal yet. Should the budget be frozen? Should the budget be cut? The budget for the Ottawa Police up 200% since amalgamation. What do you think? Mike in Orleans, you're on City News. What do you think should happen to the police budget?
Hi. Well, I was listening, Rob. I was going to say off the top of my head that it should be cut.
Should be cut. Okay. All right.
It should be cut. Now, I've been listening to you and going on. Our city's growing. I understand we need new cars. We need new officers and so on and so forth. So I can see where the need is to increase the budget. And that's fine. I mean, these are points that we could talk about all day long, freeze or whatever.
Yep.
But my question is, so we have radar photo speed now.
Photo radar, yeah. Photo radar, yeah.
Okay, so that's something that the police, either they're not doing or they're doing to a lesser extent.
Okay.
Right? So my point is...
Well, I don't know. With Project Noisemaker, they're out there all the time. They have this special Project Noisemaker now. There's a concerted effort to crack down on speeders and stunt drivers. And
well, that's great. That's absolutely fantastic. So, but where's the police presence? I don't see the police presence like I used to.
Okay.
Especially in Orleans.
Okay.
I mean, other than to give out tickets.
Okay.
That's all. There's no police presence, especially in a downtown when people need help, or there's a lot of, as you say, there's social issues downtown and stuff like that. And I think money could be, channeled in a different direction to help a lot of homeless, a lot of addiction.
Right.
You can reallocate the monies to help these people. And you're right, it's not a police officer's job at all to be a social worker. They're there to serve and protect, is what I can understand. So it's a really touchy subject.
It sure is. Yeah.
I wish that everybody could get an increase in their operating expenses, like the fire department, all of our services, but it's not the case. So I'm still kind of on the fence here.
On the fence, fair enough, sir. Fair enough. Yeah. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike. Yep, great point. Yep. It's not easy, is it? It's not easy. Rodney in Ottawa. Rodney, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, Rodney, what do you think should happen to the budget for the Ottawa Police Service? Should it go up? Should it be cut? Should it be frozen?
I think it should be increased.
Increased,
with the encouraging opportunity for it to keep increasing and to self-pay for itself until certain situations are resolved. And one of them is going to be traffic, and then I'll ask you, how many traffic intersections did you go through today, and how many police cars did you see with somebody pulled over?
Well, I come into work very early, so I didn't see any.
Well, I'm going to think whatever time you came and left, I don't know about driving all the times,
right?
But what I notice is you do not see police on the road. Every intersection, you can wait at that intersection and see somebody break the rules of the road.
Okay.
There is a possibility for a ticket. Now, here's a specific call that I've made for...
Well, as I say, we've had this Project Noisemaker going on, sir. I've had the Ottawa Police Service on the program many, many times talking about it, getting tough on speeders, getting tough on stunt drivers, getting tough on people who are still texting and driving. They're out there every weekend doing that, Rod.
Okay, here's what I called in on 2 or 3 months ago.
Okay.
And I told them in 1.5 hours... driving from my place into the city and back home, I saw 6 of those offenses.
Yeah.
And each one is worth at least $3,000. That's $18,000 total. That's $9,000 that goes towards the city, towards better safety, better roads. And those are small commercial vehicles that do not have a yellow sticker. In other words, the pickup truck pulling the big tandem trailer. Maybe it's a covered trailer and it has ladders on it and it's going to somebody's house for renovations. Maybe it has a tractor on it. Maybe it has a dump trailer with a load of topsoil. Maybe the dump trailer is empty and just has a little bit of residue of topsoil in it. Those fines are $3,000. That's 2 months ago I phoned. I phoned again a week or two ago.
Okay.
Nothing done about it.
Sure, Rodney, but let's not wander too off topic here. The budget, as it stands right now, there are a lot of people who are saying defund the police, Rodney, right?
Hey,
defund the police.
No, that's wrong.
That's wrong. So you're okay with an increase in the police budget?
And to make it, like I mentioned, so that it covers...
But it's interesting.
The police force can expand, like when Diane Deans, 20 years ago, and she sat on the council and she got... They got 18 members for a new traffic squad. I phoned up Diane Dean's office and I said, that's good.
All right, I don't have time to go back 18 years, Rodney. Thank you for your call. We've reached halftime. Rob Snow Show. We're talking about the police budget. Okay, it's a very divisive topic in the community right now. Not everyone agrees what should happen with the Ottawa Police Service budget. The mayor thinks it should go up. There are a lot of people on the Police Services Board. Certainly the chief thinks it should go up. But there's a very vocal and organized force in the community who want to defund the police, put the money into social welfare programs. Where are you on funding for the Ottawa Police Service? 1,800 strong. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, July 28th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, 19 degrees. And here's what's making news this hour. 158 more cases of COVID in the province today from 20,500 tests that were completed. Now, the province is reporting 4 additional deaths from the virus. There are 8 new cases in Ottawa, 2 in Eastern Ontario. No new cases today in Renfrew or Leeds, Granville, Lanark. Research chair at McMaster for Aging and Immunity says anyone with mixed vaccines does have additional protection. Don Bowdish says any country that does not recognize those who've received different vaccines as fully vaccinated is not basing that decision on science. Jim Cuddy is the latest high-profile person to encourage you to get vaccinated. In a tweet this morning, the Blue Rodeo lead singer says it is something good and safe to do, something we can do to get back to enjoying the things we love. Ottawa had the highest inflation rate of centres right across Canada measured by StatsCan. It cost you 4.1% more to live in Ottawa last month compared to 1 year ago. Lowest inflation rate in the country, Yellowknife, 1.3%. Across the country, the inflation rate is 3.1. And Ottawa Comic-Con has been postponed this year. Organizers say they're already looking forward to, and in fact, already counting down on their website to Comic-Con 2022. City News Time, 10:33. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
What should happen to the Ottawa police budget? It's a hot issue. Should it be increased? Should it be frozen? Zero means zero. Should it be cut? Where do you land on that? Councillor Dean said yesterday the Police Services Board, the council, they really want to hear from the public about what should happen to the police budget. They say they want to get as much feedback as they can on the police budget. So I want you to consider this a form of public consultation. It's the Talk Back Hour on the Rob Snow Show. 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. What should happen to the Ottawa police budget? Should it be increased? Frozen? Cut? $370 million budget that's up 200%, give or take, since the days of amalgamation. Never a lot of talk about freezing the Ottawa police budget. It has not been politically popular to impose a freeze on the Ottawa police. Much more politically popular to talk about hiring more police officers. So that's why I want to put it by you, okay? And I want to hear from you right now. Ron in Gananoque. Good morning, Ron.
Good morning, Rob. Welcome back.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. What should happen to the Ottawa police budget?
It's got to be raised. There is zero visibility of police. Ottawa is huge. I think people forget that. The size of the area.
Mm-hmm.
The stabbings, all the other shenanigans that are going on. No, we need more police. My perspective.
Well, it's a good perspective that you have, sir, and I thank you for sharing it. Should it go up by the full 3%? One of the things I should say, Diane Dean said yesterday, they've hired some consultants. Bring us, of course, right? Bring us back under various scenarios. What would it look like if we raised it by 1%, by 2%, or by 3%?
I've got no problem with the 3%. Honestly, I prefer that than $1 billion for electric bus.
Well, if you think about, if you think about a 3%, I guess now 3% is that's the cost of living, right? The inflation rate came out this morning that it was 3%, 3.1%.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's another way to look at it. Yeah. A police budget that goes up 3% is really you're keeping up with the rate of inflation, I guess you could say. The inflation rate came out this morning was 3.1%. The core rate of inflation was what, David? 2.2%, right? Yeah. And the plan is, just to repeat, the plan is for this budget, hire, train, and equip 30 new police officers. That would cost $3.9 million. The compensation, $1.4 million, which is $46,000 per new hire. Service says it needs to spend $2.4 million on what it calls facilities life cycle, which is, easy enough to understand. It's renovations, right, to existing police stations and police assets. And $2.8 million on IT infrastructure. And so-called specialized assets is another $600,000. I don't know. Police specialized assets. I mean, use your imagination, whatever that means. There's been a lot of growth in the southern part of the city, right? South of the airport. This massive city of ours. And that's a budget pressure for the Ottawa police. City grows and grows and grows. Those people are paying big taxes too in these new southern communities. And they expect police service. Of course they do. So there's a plan for a new communication center specifically for the South End, the new southern communities. That's $4.5 million for a new communication center. And something called the new South Division IMIT, which is $3.5 million. And I'm guessing IMIT, just guessing here, that means information management and information technology. Just for the South End, because of the explosive part, the growth in the city. Explosive growth in that part of the city. $8 million worth of new infrastructure, but it's in total, it's a $370 million budget. So, I mean, that's chicken feed in the end. Okay, $370 million budget. Should it go up, though? Or do you say, no, it's not going up 3%. It's going up 0%. And the difference between 0 and 3%, we're going to take that and we're going to put it into, this is what some people are saying, we're going to put it into housing support. We're going to put it into mental health counseling. We're going to put it into substance abuse support so that we don't have these interactions, revolving door interactions. Some of them turn very sour between people in crisis on the streets of Ottawa and the Ottawa Police Service. I think that lays it out pretty well. Let's get back to the phone lines here. Scott in Canada. Thank you for calling. Scott, you're on City News. What should happen to the Ottawa Police budget?
Hi, good morning, Rob. Long-term listener, first-time caller.
Well, I appreciate it very much, sir. What should happen to the police budget?
I think the police budget should be increased by the full 3%.
Okay.
I think there's a lot more to policing than traffic control. There's a lot of bad guys. There's a lot of bad guys on the street. Ottawa's had 11 homicides so far this year. So I'm in full support for increasing the police budget to serve and protect.
All right, thank you, Scott. Thank you for your call this morning. Let's take another one here. It's Steve in Westboro. Good morning, Steve. You're on City News. What should happen to the Ottawa police?
My brother is a police officer, and I would say this.
Okay.
Give them 5%.
5%. Okay.
5% and make
generous.
a special guns and gangs unit bigger to go after these people that are shooting every day in Ottawa.
Okay.
I think they should get 5% and more added to the guns and gangs unit.
Yes.
To stop this crime that's happening in Ottawa every day.
Well, the Ottawa police say the crime severity index, I don't know what goes into measuring that. They say it's going up, and it's gone up 5 years in a row, sir.
That's right. You know what? We're going to be like Toronto if we're not careful.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Steve.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Police budget should go up by more than 3%, he says. Joanne in Orleans. Good morning,
Hi.
Joanne. You're on City News. What should happen to the police budget?
Well, I think you give them what they need, and if going up is necessary, do it. I agree with the previous caller. I would even give them more. We hear about the crime rates in the city, and a bigger, dedicated guns and gangs unit could help or to control, if not eliminate, some of the problems we have. I mean, when I look at police budgeting, I see it very much as a human resource budgeting dilemma, but they also pay what we pay. Like, they're paying carbon tax on the gas that they drive, and those vehicles have to be on the road. That is an expense that keeps going up, and there's no mitigation for tax refunds. I know that the 911 operators, that whole comm center area is in a staffing crisis. They need more people there, not just police officers on the road, but people in their comm center. They have to deal with safe injection sites that they didn't have to deal with prior to amalgamation. So even if it went up 200%, the realities of today are far different than in the past. There are areas the city can save money. It doesn't have to be on the back of the police department. Frankly, those bike lanes are a big white elephant and a huge, colossal waste of taxpayer money. As far as social workers go, I'm not for putting social workers in dangerous positions. If there is a way to fund them and have them in the background, helping patients and giving them the resources they need. In fact, all mental health funding, of course, increasing it, much of that responsibility.
Yeah, why does it? Well, yeah, I guess when I had the former chief of police, Vern White, on, now Senator, of course, Vern White, he said, why does it have to be one or the other? You know.
Well, I think because the public sees police respond in crisis situations with no shortage of video. So our perception is that it has to be in that moment of crisis, right? Whereas in fact, if the resources were there prior to that crisis, maybe individuals wouldn't be having psychotic breaks on the street. But provincially speaking, we also know that you can hold someone in a hospital on a psych ward for a very limited period of time. And apparently, if they're no danger to themselves or others, but those dangers can occur when they're on the street, not in the hospital. And so we have a system of catch and release for mental health patients. So I wouldn't send a social worker out on the front lines. But if we're talking about serious restructuring of infrastructure for mental health so that they have what they need prior to that, it's coupled with serious discussions on forced medication too. Maybe people are refusing meds that they absolutely need, and we can't do anything about it, social workers or psychiatrists. Yeah. Maybe we can't do anything about it. And then who's left to pick up the fallout from these gaping holes in the safety net? Well, it's police officers. And we hold them to these unreasonable standards. Pay them well, because they put their lives on the line so we can live in safety. And don't hold them accountable for all the other system failures. Because in the end, if it's your daughter who's getting groped in a Starbucks, you want someone to protect her.
Okay. Thank you, Joanne. Thank you. Good call. 10:45. Final quarter of the Talkback Hour is coming up. We have 1, 2, maybe even 3 lines for you. This is the Talkback Hour. We're talking about the Ottawa Police Service budget. Should it be increased? Should it be frozen? Should it be cut? What is your opinion at 750-1310? Right after this on City News.
Papa Jack was started 14 years ago, really by accident more than anything. A friend of mine had bought a grocery store. A popcorn machine was in there. He didn't want it. I ended up by buying it. My family thought I was nuts. When I first said, come and pick up this popcorn machine, my son said, what the heck for? I won't use the exact words. But anyway, we started, and it just kept on growing and growing. But at the time, I was the only one selling popcorn in Ottawa. But we persevered as a family, and here we are. So it's been very, very rewarding for my family and myself. And to see our brand name, Papa Jack, and Papa Jack came out of, I wanted something that was going to be very bilingual. So Papa, and then in Ontario, everybody called me Jack, even though my name is Jacques. In Quebec, it's fine, it's Jacques, but in Ontario, it was always Jack. So we married the two together, Papa, Jack. With the store that we have on Thurston Drive, it basically, the factory's in the back. If you come into the store, you can see how the popcorn is being made during the week. So it adds an extra layer of, you can see the sanitation, you can see how we do it. It's not like making popcorn. Most people thought when I started this, I was making popcorn in my garage or in my basement. No, never did. It was started in this building, in the back of the building, and then we kept growing and growing until what we have now. My daughter and my son came up with a brilliant idea to do a fundraiser online. So basically all people have to do is to register here, and we give them a special code number. And with that code number, they tell their friends or their neighbors, everybody, to buy online from us with that code number. And then at the end of each period, could be 2 weeks, could be a month, then we'll pay them a 20% of all the businesses that we got through that code number. One thing I'd like to say is thank you to all the Ottawa people who have supported us and support local businesses. It sometimes people, they talk about buying locally. Now it becomes that much more important to buy locally, to support your local businesses, because not too many of them are going to survive this. We're fortunate that we're so far so good.
Talk back.
On the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
So again, we're talking about the Ottawa police budget. What should happen to the Ottawa police budget? Up, flatline, or cut? What should happen, in your opinion? At 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. Anna, good morning. You're on City News. Anna?
Good morning, Rob.
Morning.
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
I'm calling. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to express my views.
No problem.
I do agree that the budget should be increased.
Should be increased.
I think that,
okay.
Yeah. I think policing is one of the city's key services.
Oh, yes.
And we have a, fairly safe city. I feel pretty safe when I'm walking downtown or, anywhere. And I'd like to keep it that way. I think the defund nonsense, I think it's nonsense. We're not the U.S., so we have to stop thinking that we're the U.S. I think we could also take a look at U.S. cities where they've tried defunding and what's happened. I mean, there's an increase in random acts of violence on the streets of New York, for example. I'm sure you've seen some of those videos.
Okay.
More murders. We don't need that. We don't want that. And I was listening to an interview with Councillor Deans yesterday, and she was talking about concerns with that there are a lot of perceptions that people have that the police maybe are treating certain individuals unfairly, etc. But I don't think we should be basing policy on perceptions that people have. I think we should get the facts and.
Well, no, we have collected data on that, and reports have been issued. And if you're a person of color in the city of Ottawa, it's been proven pretty much beyond any reasonable doubt that you're more likely to be stopped by the Ottawa police.
Okay, so we have facts on that.
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
So,
yeah, we
okay,
have.
so it's just the way I guess she phrased it about perception. So,
maybe.
So there are facts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, I do think that I agree with an increase. And I don't think it should be defunded. I think, if anything, other departments maybe don't need a 3% increase. Maybe some of those could be cut to find funds for, social issues and that kind of thing. But,
right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd like to wish you a very happy wedding day and honeymoon.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens as far as honeymoons go. It all depends on, I guess, whether we're allowed to get into the Atlantic bubble or not. Because
okay. Well, I hope you do, and I hope
her family is in Prince Edward Island. My family's on Cape Breton Island, and they both have different rules. New Brunswick has pretty much abandoned all its rules, but sometimes the rules can change on a dime if they get 3 or 4 cases. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with it. But I thank you. It's very kind of you to say that.
I
thank you so much. It's very kind of you to say. Yeah. Bye. We have 6 minutes left. 3 phone lines left. $370 million budget to talk about is the budget for the Ottawa Police Service. Okay. 1 out of every $10 in property tax that you pay, the considerable property tax that you pay in the city of Ottawa, goes to fund the Ottawa Police Service. Compensation, by far the driver of the Ottawa Police budget, right? It's about $258 million of that. Salaries and benefits, 70% of the budget. Randall in his column says 80. The math I did this morning was 70 salaries and benefits for a payroll of 1,800. You have a payroll of 1,800, $258 million in salary. You do the math, it comes out to $143,000 per employee for the Ottawa Police Service. I'm not passing any judgment on that number. I'm just saying that's the number. And that's why I'm asking you, because your elected representatives want to know what you think. The ask is that the Ottawa Police Service budget goes up by as much as 3%. What do you think should happen to that police budget? Up, flatline, or cut? Have your say at 750-1310. Rob, thank you for calling. Rob, you're on City News.
Hello.
Hi, Rob.
I'm a first-time caller. I don't normally call into these programs. I'm a little bit nervous.
Take your time.
Especially because I am one of those people that does support a freeze on the 3%.
Okay.
And I'm not part of any organized group that's calling to defund the police, but to me, what I'm looking at is the fact, just a report that came out recently from the Ottawa Police looking at crime in the year 2020, and that they said there was a 21.2% drop in reported crime, and also nearly a 14% drop in violent crime. So that to me is significant.
Mm-hmm. But let's think about the year that they're talking about, right? 2020, pretty extraordinary year, right? Would you not expect, a lot of people are inside cooped up there.
I'd agree with that, but I think we are seeing a drop. We're seeing fewer homicides, robbery, crime-related. I think you have to look in terms of what's the overall rate of time and officers that are actually spent towards solving crimes or investigating crimes, and what's the percentage of their time doing that as compared to doing the other work as well, too. I mean, I saw one report that said 20% of their budgets, 20% of their time actually is committed towards working on crime. So I think really you have to consider the drop that has occurred right now and whether that money could be invested elsewhere.
Okay.
The other thing, too, is that the school boards canceled the school resource officer program, so that there should be some money there
some savings
as well,
there.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was a little upset with Diane Dean saying that if we put a freeze on, it would result in 140 layoffs. Because the issue is it an effective use of our taxpayers' dollars to just contribute towards not laying people off? The city had no problem laying off tons of workers several years ago, and they had no problems laying off OC drivers when the LRT came into effect. And if they were to put the freeze of 3%, then that would at least start getting us to that point where we can start working on preventative measures and getting more social workers into dealing with crisis situations. I mean, I've heard police officers say they don't feel that they have the training to go into some of those situations.
Sure. Yeah.
And, we've seen some...
as I say, it's a $370 million gross operating budget. $258 million of it is for salaries. For a force of 1,800, comes out to $143,000 per employee.
Yeah. And if
that's a lot of money.
Exactly, it is. Yeah. And if you're saying that this will result in 140 layoffs, that's doing nothing more than just protecting your budget. That's all it is. It's not necessary. And I mean, it would allow more services to go into doing wellness checks appropriately without risk of somebody getting shot, which has happened. And I mean, the reason I feel this way, it's not a new thing to me. There was a book written by Irwin Waller, who was a board member of Crime Prevention Ottawa, and he wrote a book about 10 years ago called Less Law and More Order. And the book actually does a global analysis of communities and municipalities.
All right, we'll look into it, Rob. I got to run because, as is sometimes the case during the Talkback Hour, everybody calls in the last 5 minutes, and we got to get to some people here. Sam in Ottawa, you're on City News.
So sorry to call you in the last 5 minutes.
That's okay, Sam.
First-time caller.
Appreciate it.
About the police budget, I've got a new outlook on that. I recently had a brother join a police force. I won't say which one. And I was on the side of defunding a lot of the police budget or cutting a lot of the police budget until I found out that they've got my brother running around in equipment that is unsuitable, like a bulletproof vest that only stops small caliber rounds when most of the crimes committed in the area have a larger caliber round. He's been bitten by his own police dog. I really don't think the answer is less of a budget. I know it's expensive, but it's expensive to keep people safe, and it's going to be expensive to continue to keep people safe. And I'm not sure. Maybe after COVID, there'll be a bit of spree in crime, because I know that the crime numbers have been a little wonky as of late. And I think now I'm on the side more of keeping the budget higher. I think protecting the people that protect us actually could probably be a good thing.
All right. Thank you, Sam. We'll take one more. In Nepean, a wonderful place to be in. It's Mitchell. Good morning, Mitchell. You're on City News. What should happen to the police budget?
Hello, sir. For me, I'm for it, but I'm not for it because people tend to forget that last year there's 12 police officers that were suspended with pay for various reasons, for harassment, for sexual harassment, including the deputy chief who was suspended and is still under suspension and review right now.
Yep.
I think the budget should include also harassment, psychological testing. That's just my opinion on that, but I do think that we do need police. But
you want a serious look at the workplace culture of that place, I bet, right, Mitchell?
Exactly.
Yeah, I know you're not alone there. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for all your calls. I'm glad we fit in those last few calls. We'll have more coverage of that throughout the week here on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, July 28th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, 19 degrees. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Latest case count from the province on COVID numbers today, 158. That's from just over 20,500 tests that were completed. Now, the province is reporting 4 additional deaths from this virus. There are 8 new cases of COVID in Ottawa, 2 more in Eastern Ontario. But both the Renfrew County Health Unit and Leeds Grenville Lanark are reporting no new cases. As more and more Canadians get vaccinated against COVID-19, an expert from McMaster is dispelling some concern present among those still hesitant to get the jab. Here's City News reporter Alex Gouge.
Dawn Bowdish is the Canada Research Chair in Aging and Immunity at McMaster University. She says mixing vaccines has been proven to provide additional protection, and the decision for countries to not recognize mixed doses as fully immunized isn't based in science. Bowdish also tells the Rob Snow Show Canada doesn't have emergency approval for vaccines like the United States does.
In Canada, that's not a thing. We don't have this interim use, emergent use authorization. In the Canadian approval process goes through a Health Canada approval process, and it goes through the exact same approval process as any other vaccine.
She says the difference with the COVID-19 vaccine is there was an all-hands-on-deck approach, and everyone dropped everything to expedite the shot. Alex Gouge, City News.
City News time, 11:02. Now the lead singer of Blue Rodeo weighing in, sharing an important message for people. Jim Cuddy recently posted on Twitter, urging everyone to get vaccinated.
It's a good and safe thing to do, and I think it's something to do for others so that we can all get back to doing what we love to do.
Now, Cuddy adds that getting double vaccinated is the communal thing to do to get back to normal. He says performing at things like Ottawa Blues Fest once again is something that he is looking forward to. City News time, 11:03. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Below average temperatures and hazy sunshine for most areas today. The high 25 degrees. Tonight, partly cloudy down to 14. And tomorrow we get into periods of rain with the high just 23. For today, the high 25.
And right now in Ottawa and in Smith Falls, it's 19 degrees. Hawkesbury OPP looking for a little help. They're trying to identify 3 people of interest in an assault investigation. It was this past Sunday, just before 9 in the evening. OPP called to an assault off Pitch Road in Plantagenet. A 73-year-old man involved with people on dirt bikes and on an ATV. Now, if you have any information about this, you're asked to call Hawkesbury OPP. One person has been charged in the case, 20-year-old Joshua De Silva, facing 3 charges, including assault with a weapon. And a Wisconsin Court of Appeal has rejected the request by making a murderer subject, Stephen Avery, for a new trial. He is serving a life sentence for a 2005 murder. The case was the focus of a popular Netflix series whose creators raised questions about the convictions of Avery and his nephew. Avery's attorney asked court to consider claims ranging from insufficient scientific evidence to ineffective trial counsel. That was rejected. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Heave high, oh, the best man in Ottawa was Mapara Joe. Mapara Joe. Big Joe Mapara paddled into Mattawa all the way from Ottawa in just one day. Hey, on the river Ottawa, the best man we ever saw was Big Joe Mapara, the old folks say. Come and listen and I'll tell you what the old folks say. And he say Big Joe had an old pet frog, bigger than a horse, and he barked like a dog. And the only thing quicker than a train upon a track was Big Joe riding on the bullfrog's back. Heave high, oh, the best man in Ottawa was Mapara Joe. Mapara Joe. And he say Big Joe used to get real wet from cutting down timber and working up a sweat. And everyone will tell you around Carlton Place, the Mississippi dripped off of Big Joe's face. Heave high, oh, the best man in Ottawa was Mapara Joe. Mapara Joe. Now Joe had the portage from the Gatineau down.
Time for Valley View. Bruce McIntyre's here from the Eganville Leader. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
How you doing?
Extended version of Stomp and Tom. I liked it. Thank you.
You good this week?
I'm good. I'm feeling well and
feeling well.
On the
Good.
upswing.
That's good. It's been a few weeks. I know you had a bit of a health downturn there for a little while, so I'm glad to hear you're doing well.
Oh, they can't keep me down. You know that.
You got to take care of yourself there, buddy.
I always do.
Okay. What are you paying for gas up the line? It was around the corner from the station here. It's $1.37.
Yeah, I paid $116.9.
Where?
Golden Lake.
In Golden Lake, yeah. In Pikwakanagan, right?
In Pikwakanagan, yes. I dropped my dog off this morning and grabbed some gas when I was out there.
So $1.16 in Golden Lake. But around Eganville, Renfrew, you're in Renfrew now, I guess, right?
$1.33.
$1.32. Still cheaper. Yeah. Okay, interesting. All right.
But, we have a gas excess now because we have we switched from snowmobiles to boats this year, so the boats are taking the gasoline. It's not as many boats I've noticed up and down the highways this year, but that's we're paying for gas up here.
Busy up the line. Busy.
Oh, good and bad. Unfortunately, we had it looks like we had a second alleged murder take place in Eganville in less than a month.
This is what's on the front page of this week's Eganville Leader. Paper is out today. $2 includes the GST. It's Renfrew County's largest paid circulation newspaper, independently owned since 1902. And the big headline, including the picture of a motel and many OPP cruisers, is OPP probing area's possible second murder. 2 young men arrested following death at Eganville Motel. So you're kind of our crime reporter this morning from the Eganville crime beat. What's going on?
Well, give your listeners an idea of the scope. The hotel in the photo is located just coming into Eganville. If you're coming from the Pembroke Golden Lake area, it's at the top of a hill. It's called the Pine View, and it's not your typical motel. You get the idea of get seedy. It's nothing like that at all. It's a very nice, well-maintained motel. The rooms are rented out usually long term. A lot of the rooms, unfortunately, have been rented out to people who can't find homes because they can't afford to rent in Renfrew County. So we're getting a lot of individuals in the hotel. But the gentleman who was arrested, who was allegedly murdered, they still haven't released the name, but we know him as 40-year-old Gilbert Rumleski from Barry's Bay originally, and he's been there for the last couple of years. And the former owner of the motel just sold it last month. Talked to our team, and he described him as a very happy, easygoing, nice man who helped out around the motel. There's handyman style. Okay. And he was just shocked. Everybody else was just shocked. 2 individuals have been taken into custody. Their names have not been released yet either, as far as the booking or bail information. So it's really a bubble as to what the cause was. One story floated around was that the victim came running and tripped and fell on a knife, which doesn't really. Okay. The OPP they'll look at that, of course, but they don't.
They're suspicious of that. They're suspicious of that, you would say.
Yeah. So it's unfortunate because there was a murder a couple of weeks ago at the reserve, just 10 kilometers down the road, Mr. Graham. So it's not the greatest summer for good news in Eganville. But if the 2 individuals will get their chance, if they are brought to trial, we'll get their day in court, and we'll just see what goes from there. What led to this?
Right, but your papers confirmed the identity of the victim.
Yes, we have.
Right, but not the
Not the 2 individuals taken into custody, no. The OP are being pretty tight-lipped about it, which is normal.
But this happened a week ago, right? It happened a week ago.
Last Wednesday, yeah. And I didn't check the OPP news portal today, but as far as they have not released the names yet. And they're working, the local OPP are also working with the criminal investigation branch, and the chief coroner, of course, are coming in to give their expertise because we, as you know, Rob, we don't get murders around here very often, so it's kind of it's a good thing that we don't get them very often. When they do happen, we'll take the advice and expertise of the people who deal with this on a daily basis, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I was looking in the picture on the front page, bottom left, 2 of the 3 OPP officers I recognized from my many days in court. The gentleman on the right was lead interpreter, for lack of a better word, during the Thompson twins, their trial. And I see a lot of familiar faces. Unfortunately, it's Eganville, but hopefully we can turn the page and move forward.
Okay. Now, everybody knows nothing says romance like a caboose from the Canada Pacific Railway, the Canadian Pacific Railway. There is one, right, in Renfrew.
There is a caboose.
Yes, and that was the chosen backdrop, I guess, for wedding vows.
It was.
Tell me about the happy couple.
Tell you about the happy couple. It turns out I know the young lady. I was driving to Canadian Tire, and I said, boy, a lot of cars at the visitor booth. I go by. I said, hey, there's a wedding. I did a bit of a 180 in the very busy road and went back and was kind of in dirty shorts and T-shirt. They're all dressed nicely. I kind of wandered into the wedding party and stand there and listen, and they're all kind of looking at me, and I wave, and finally they said, then Jessica looks over at me. She knew right away why I was there, and I got talking to her and her new groom, Kevin, and they wanted to have the wedding at the caboose because they meet there very frequently for coffee when they take breaks from work, and they bring their kids there to play at the caboose. And she has fond memories of playing at the caboose when it was open, being able to go inside. And she said when she found out that there was a movement of front to have the caboose removed and sold for scrap metal because of the cost incurred to fix it, they wanted, what can we do? What can we do to, save the caboose? Let's get married in front of it, because they tried twice. The old saying, 3 times you're out. They've tried last summer to get married. COVID got in the way. They tried last fall using beautiful fall colors as a backdrop. COVID got in the way.
Yeah.
So now they did it, and they're married. They're up in Sault Ste. Marie right now at his hometown. And she's speaking to the town staff. They think it's the only wedding ever taking place in front of the caboose. So there may be more weddings. So,
a sign of things to come, right?
So when the time comes and the scrapyard sends the truck to take the caboose, they may have to interrupt the wedding.
It's great. It's great. It's great. Yeah.
It's some good news. That's in the sea of darkness, because unfortunately,
if somebody had thought of that early, wouldn't have to scrap the thing, right? So
that's right.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. And it's the season. Summer brings out the funny times. One thing that I've been trying to do the last 3 summers, and my boss scooped me. He went on the boat with the OPP on the weekend.
That must be cool.
We've been trying to get to help them out, just timing, and so he went around with the Marine unit, and it's more than just checking for alcohol in the boats. If you're operating a motorized vehicle on the lake, you'll get a ticket, and you can be charged as impaired. I think everyone knows that by now. But they also do other things. They help a woman was in distress. She was taking in water, and they just happened to be going by, and they towed her in. And so it's kind of a neat little assignment from May till September each year, and they have a certain area now. Rob, we have over 900 freshwater lakes in Renfrew County.
Wow.
So there's a lot of patrolling to do.
Sure.
They do the major lakes. They'll do some backwash lakes as well, but that's their emphasis is on the big lakes, like Round Lake, Golden Lake, and those types of areas.
Right. Well, it seems in Ottawa, on the Ottawa River anyway, they're busy. The Ottawa Police Marine, they're rescuing people all the time around the rapids, Duchesne Rapids, and things like that. So, yeah.
Well, it's we've had some rescues, but no, for the most part, I found that boaters around here, again, I'd say half of them are cottagers from out of town.
Sure.
They obey the rules, and unfortunately, I don't know if you've got a chance to read page 2 of your Eganville leader, Rob, but something bad happens once in a while when cottagers come, and they bring COVID.
Right. What is the COVID status situation?
Today, none today in Renfrew County, which is good. We've been around 0 for quite a while. However, up in the Bay, they had a small outbreak up there. 3 people were identified as having COVID, and that due to contact tracing, that spread out to 20 other people who are now in quarantine. They're considered high-risk contacts, and it kind of put kind of a low note on the day, because it was the day that it was discovered that the owner of the Ash Grove Inn, very well-known establishment in Barry's Bay overlooking one of the lakes, was getting ready to sell. It was the last day on the job, and he finds out there's an outbreak in his community. And they've traced it back to out-of-towners, and they've also traced it back to the students that attend the Catholic University in Barry's Bay, St. Hedwig's. And the other church had to be closed. They're closed at the end of the month to try to reduce the spread of infection. So we're not immune. Luckily, hopefully the 3 of them will come out on the other end of fine, and they are the Delta variant as well, which is unfortunate. So we know how quickly that spreads.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And the Beachburg Fair, what was going on there? Tell me about the Beachburg Fair.
Well, we had a fair.
Had a fair. Okay, let's celebrate. We had a fair. That's great.
Well,
right?
we couldn't say that last year.
No.
They were knocked off one by one. Beachburg, Cobden, Renfrew, they all went down in flames. So this year, Beachburg showed how it can be done safely. They were successful. Beachburg kicks it off. They're the third weekend of July. And the next big one will be Cobden. So hopefully Cobden's can take place, and then Renfrew in September. And it just shows that life can get back to normal. And so far, there's nothing coming out of the Beachburg affair as far as COVID contagions go. So keep our fingers crossed. We'll know for sure in another week whether there was any transmission there. And if not, I think Ottawa Valley, the fairs will be open for business, which is almost life as normal. And the next thing for us will be church dinners. So they've all been canceled last year, and that was a big hit. I mean, that's a rite of passage up here. You go to Newfoundland, you drink Screech. You go to the Valley, you got to go to a church dinner. That's just the way it is.
Okay. Well, here's a heck of a story. I'm just flipping through here.
I know it's a big paper today. There's lots to choose from.
Township orders orange ribbons down again.
Yeah.
Christina Wittengoff, is that the name of the reporter?
I don't know the young lady. She's in Golden Lake. She's up visiting for the summer, and she can write.
The community members, listen to this. This is a heck of a story. The community members who tied orange ribbons to the main bridge to commemorate the First Nations children whose bodies were left in unmarked graves have been asked to remove the ribbons by July 30th. According to the Bonnechere Valley Township Mayor, Jennifer Murphy, she received only one complaint but understood the municipal office had received a lot. When they were first put on the bridge, they were really pretty, all in bows, but of course, with all the weather we've had, with the heat and the rain, I feel like the lady doing them has to run out every few days, make them look pretty again. So that kind of maintenance is a lot when you're talking about volunteers. According to the mayor, there will be a discussion August 10th council meeting to find a more permanent solution, a mural, a flag, etc. That's interesting. What an interesting story that is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's if your listeners are familiar with Eganville, there's one bridge that crosses Bowdish, and it's the north-south side, and it's a very, very well-traveled bridge. I mean, a lot of cars go across that, especially in the summertime. And I went by this morning, and they were not looking the bright orange that a few weeks ago.
Right.
And they were looking tattered. You know, they want to do something to show respect.
Okay. It says orange ribbons have also been tied to bridges in Petawawa, Armpire, and Renfrew. So, it's kind of a thing in the valley, I guess. Okay.
It is. The swinging bridge. They went to the swinging bridge and did them all orange ribbons, which was nice. So we hopefully they can do something out of respect and a proper long-term memorial. And for your listeners, let you know that in 2 weeks there will be a walk from Brantford to Golden Lake. Some of the relatives and family of one of the boys, Joey Commando, who died running away when he was 13 years old back in 1968. His family will be doing a pilgrimage from Brantford, where he attended school at the Mohawk Institute, up to Golden Lake, and they're going to properly have a burial for him. They never had a proper burial, and they wanted to get that done for him. I mean, his body was returned back in '68, but they never really they didn't know the answers, like what happened, what the circumstances, and now they know. So that will be taking place in a couple of weeks, and we look forward to meeting up with the family members again. I met them last month, so that'll be something interesting.
Okay. Bruce, always great to talk to you, Bruce. Thank you so much for the update from Up the Line today.
Thank you, Rob, and to all your listeners, I wish them well, and go get an Eganville leader.
Talk soon. Yeah, from the Eganville leader, that's Bruce McIntyre with Valley View. It's 11:20. We're going to talk about today's inflation rate with the Conservative Party's inflation hawk. His name is Pierre Poilievre. He'll join us next. Conservative Member of Parliament here on City News.
We just took over this business about a few weeks prior to the pandemic, but we've been loving the community, the people, very friendly, but it's been very difficult starting up a new business, just the time that we did, but I'm sure it's the same everywhere. We did take a broken business, which doesn't help us, but we thought we believe in what we do. We're very passionate about food, and we just really wanted to share the Iraqi culture through our food. All our recipes are homemade, so this is very unique. Usually you hear restaurants, shops, it's all frozen food or prepared food. So nothing here is prepared, everything is homemade. We get our meat and produce from a local farm. So supporting local is the way to go. We are supporting all the way. And our meat are actually marinated the day of, so it's as fresh as can be. Quality ingredients and everything is made from scratch. I get a lot of people when they come in, they say it tastes like Middle Eastern, like back home. So for you to have been to Iraq and have the food there, you can really like compare and see the similarity. We do like to focus on healthy. So our recipes, not only the homemade, again, everything is from scratch, but we have like from combos and to like small sandwiches. One of our favorites and very popular is the chicken salad and the beef salad. So now you're getting all the protein and all these amazing ingredients that we all need. During this time, I find a lot of people are sitting at home and not enough movement. So to come here and get something healthy other than go elsewhere and just put, what's not so good for our bodies, makes a huge difference. So we have shawarma sandwiches, combos. I mean, if you're looking for a meal to feed your family, I would highly recommend the family platter. It comes literally with everything, with potatoes, with rice, with chicken, with beef, and we don't charge extra for mix. I know a lot of places do. Here we just add everything to your platter. And lots of healthy choices for sure. We're very passionate about food, and for our small family business, it's been good. Like I said, it's a little struggle, but we are not a chained restaurant.
And 1310 AM.
The Consumer Price Index released this morning for the month of June from Statistics Canada, known as the inflation rate or the cost of living. And 3.1% is the top line number, the so-called all items inflation number. But then StatsCan says when you take out the volatile items like food inflation and energy inflation, then the core inflation rate is about 2.2% annualized. 2.2% annualized. Okay? So let's get into this with Conservative Member of Parliament Pierre Poilievre. Good morning.
Good morning to you, Rob. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? So you're building yourself a reputation as being a real inflation hawk within the Canadian political movement here. What is your reaction to the inflation number out today from Statistics Canada?
Well, let's start with the fact that 3.1% is not only above the 2% target that the Bank of Canada sets, but it's outside of the acceptable range for inflation that is supposed to be 1 to 3%. So we're, for the third month in a row, above 3%, and the increases in the cost of living are not just the case if you measure year over year, but also month over month, which means that prices are rising in the present, not just when compared to last year. So we have what I call an inflation tax. The government is printing money like crazy to pay for overspending, and that printed money is flooding into the economy, and too many dollars chasing too few goods equals higher prices. That's what we have.
So what do you think should be done about it then? Politically speaking, okay.
Slow the spending. Get back to normal levels of pre-COVID spending and stop paying our bills with printed cash.
Okay. Do you believe that these numbers, for a lot of people, David and I saw these numbers we kind of shake our head and we're like, really? Really? Only 2%? Do you think the numbers are an accurate reflection of the current increases in cost of living that Canadians are facing?
No, and I'll give you a simple statistic of to show it. So on today's report shows that the cost of shelter is up 4.4% year over year.
Yes.
Nobody believes that the cost of shelter is up 4%. So if I go to the Real Estate Association website and look at residential average prices, they're actually up 27% year over year. So how is it possible that the Consumer Price Index shows we're only experiencing a 4.5% increase in shelter costs when the average house is 27% more? Well, the answer is that they don't actually use housing prices to measure the cost of shelter. They don't even use rental prices. What they use is the monthly payments. And those have artificially dropped because interest rates are temporarily low.
Yeah, a lot of it is mortgage carrying costs, right? Would be a major component. Yeah.
So, and that component has come down artificially and temporarily because, of course, interest rates have plummeted to record lows. But the underlying cost of purchasing a house and the debt you have to accumulate for the long run in order to buy it has gone way up. And that is not represented anywhere in this CPI, even though it is the biggest purchase that Canadians will ever make. So the numbers, which themselves are high, 3.1% is high inflation, actually understate the real problem that the cost of the assets we need to purchase to live in Canada are going through the roof.
Okay, so in light of this, what do you think the Bank of Canada should be doing then?
Well, it's what it should stop doing. The bank is still buying $100 billion a year of government debt. Now, that is a reduction. They were buying about $400 billion a year on an annualized basis last fiscal year. But so they've slowed it down. But this is not normal. This is not how we run public finances. Even in the great financial crisis, the Bank of Canada did not buy government debt. It allowed the markets, normal pension funds and investors and others, to lend money to the government. Real money was lent to the government, and that money was spent. Right now, what's happening is because you couldn't actually borrow enough to fund Trudeau's spending appetites, the Bank of Canada is effectively creating cash out of thin air.
Right.
And
you don't buy this idea that we have a fiscal policy that is run out of the Department of Finance, government policy, and then we have Government of Canada, Bank of Canada, monetary policy that is supposed to be wholly separate, and there's an inviolable wall between the two. You think there's too much intermarriage going on between government and the Bank of Canada. Do I have that right?
Yes, I think that the Bank of Canada is not currently independent. And you can look at the numbers to see it. Last fiscal year, the bank bought 84% of all the debt that the government borrowed. And this fiscal year, the bank actually is basically buying debt at the same rate as the government is borrowing it. So basically, they're coordinating, and they've said so. The parliamentary secretary to the finance minister said that there has been immense coordination between the Bank of Canada and the finance department, which is obvious. So basically, the Bank of Canada has become the personal piggy bank of Justin Trudeau, and that's why our money is being ruined and our prices are rising.
All right. Thank you, Pierre Poilievre. Nice to hear from you today.
Great to be with you.
Yep, bye-bye. The news is coming up next, and then we'll get the economist point of view from Bay Street, from CIBC World Markets, and Benjamin Tal is going to join us. This is The Rob Snow Show on City News.
It's Wednesday, July 28th. Good morning. I'm Chris Curries. Right now in Ottawa, some sunny skies, bit of sun, a bit of clouds as well. 21 degrees in Smiths Falls. It's 20. Here's what's making news this hour. 158 cases of COVID-19 in Ontario today. That's from over 20,500 tests completed. The province reporting 4 additional deaths from the virus. 8 new cases in Ottawa, 2 in Eastern Ontario. No new cases in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, or the Renfrew County Health Unit. There's a call for Canada to fully integrate childcare and early childhood education into school systems. A report from People for Education says there are clear benefits to early childhood education and current systems across the country aren't measuring up. The group says access to childcare prices and availability vary widely based on location and says a lack of coordination between all levels and high schools, elementary schools negates some of the benefits for kids who do have access. The research chair at McMaster for Aging and Immunity says anyone with mixed vaccines has additional protection. Don Bowdish says any country that does not recognize those who received different vaccines as fully vaccinated is not basing that decision on science. In Ottawa, the highest inflation rate of the centres across Canada measured by StatsCan. It costs you 4.1% more to live in Ottawa last month compared to the year before. The lowest inflation rate in the country was Yellowknife at 1.3%, across the country at 3.1%. City News Time, 11:33. I'm Chris Curries. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Just looking at the markets as we approach midday here, it's kind of a mixed picture. TSX is pretty much flat right now. It's up 7 points. S&P 500 is up 3 points. Dow down 53. NASDAQ's doing okay. It's up more than 100 points right now. Our dollar, Canadian dollar, with this latest inflation report from Statistics Canada, 3.1% for June. I mean, it's almost August. This is a June number, so we're looking very much in the rearview mirror. Let's keep that in mind. Canadian dollar, 79.5 cents U.S. Okay, but the number is 3.1% for June. And it's 2.2% when you strip out the so-called volatile items. Core inflation, cost of living, 2.2%. Some of you might find that hard to believe. But let's get the expert analysis from the economics department at the Bank of Montreal, from the director of Canadian Rates and Macro Strategist Fixed Income Strategy, Benjamin Reitzes, joins us this morning here on City News. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Excellent.
Good. What do you think of this number, this inflation number that's out today? How should we interpret this, in your opinion?
What we've seen so far this year is pretty persistent inflation pressures, and so in June we got a bit of a break from that perspective. So I think for policymakers, they'll breathe slightly easier, and I guess it puts a bit of a dent in the broader inflation story and inflation worries generally. Maybe those get calmed down a little bit after this print, but we're not out of the woods yet by any means. There's still a lot of uncertainty on the horizon. And it's going to be a while until that clears up.
Okay, when you say we're not out of the woods yet, what do you mean? Not out of the woods yet with COVID? Not out of the woods yet with inflationary pressures? What do you mean?
They go together.
Okay, all right.
With high inflation. So, I mean, you've had pretty strong prints January through May. Again, this one on the softer side, but last year in the third quarter, so July, August, September of 2020, inflation was pretty soft in that period, and so over the next 3 months, you're probably going to see that 3.1%. It's probably going to move higher. It's not going to take much to move it up. So I expect higher prints over the next few months. But what I mean by we're not out of the woods yet is there are still a lot of uncertainties as to how we come out of COVID. As the economy reopens, how does the economy behave? How do prices behave? Are some of the supply chain issues going to kind of dissipate over time, or are they going to be a little more persistent? What we've seen for the past few weeks or so, now even longer, is increasing COVID cases in emerging markets. And that's where you've seen some of the supply pressures in the first place. And so some of those supply chain disruptions might last a little bit longer, which means potentially longer-lasting upward price pressure on some items. Another way to look at things is as we reopen domestically, as Canada, as Ontario reopens, you're going to see people moving back to do more services. They're going to get a haircut, get their nails done, more high-touch services. Is there enough supply there to keep prices from rising as demand really picks up? And I mean, those are unknowns. We've never been through this type of event before, obviously. And so unknowns there, not out of the woods yet.
What is your team in the economics department of the Bank of Montreal? What is your view longer term on inflation, the term that economists love to use because they can't say temporary, they have to use the word transitory. Why economists use these words, I don't know. They have a dictionary all their own. But nevertheless, transitory meaning, is it a blip, short-term thing, or is it more going to be more longer term? Are we into a new inflationary environment? What's the view of your team?
Transitory is great word. I don't know what it means either. If that helps at all. I mean,
it's a $10 word for temporary. Yeah.
Well, even temporary. What's temporary? Temporary a month, 2 months, 3 months, 3 years. They're all temporary in theory.
Okay.
But seriously, we have inflation a little more persistent over the next 18 months or so. So we do have things slowing through the course of 2022. But it kind of longer term, we still have inflation coming back to the Bank of Canada's 2% target. There's no reason to get there. I mean, they've done a pretty good job for the past few years, so them. All of that being said, you have the ingredients for more, or at least the potential for more sustained inflationary pressure. It is there.
Okay.
You've had extreme amounts of monetary easing, so big expansion of the money supply, very stimulative monetary policy, and on top of that, very stimulative fiscal policy. And so if you're ever going to get inflation over any period of time, it would probably be now, and we'll see how those policies evolve. I'd expect, I mean, the expectation is, and we've already seen it from the Bank of Canada a little bit, they're pulling back a little bit on their stimulus, slowly but surely. On the fiscal side, we'll see. That's still an open question.
Okay. The number in the United States, the inflation number, was better than 5%. Here, it's all in a little more than 3%. Is it calculated a different way, or is it largely the same? Or are there greater inflationary pressures in the United States than Canada? Can you speak to that a little bit? What, apples to apples, or what?
It's definitely not apples to apples. The structure of the basket is different, so we buy different stuff than the U.S. does, than American consumers on average. One big difference, and this is pretty huge right now, is cars. There's car prices. So in the U.S., used auto prices are in the basket. Not huge, but they're a part of the basket, and used auto prices are up 10, 20, 30% or something along those lines over the past few months.
Yeah.
So that's had a really big upward impact on inflation. New car prices also a little bit more price pressure there. That's spilled over from the used side. In Canada, we don't even have used auto prices in the basket, so that's gone.
Okay.
Whether prices are up 20 or 30%, I have no idea, because it's not in the basket. And new car prices are much tamer as well. So those two in particular, it's more than that, but those two things are pretty notable and really highlight the difference between Canada.
Interesting. Okay. All right. What is in the basket, so to speak? What is, say, deflationary? What's keeping sort of inflation in check? It seems to be, if it's anything, it's interest rates, that they're so super low that is kind of dampening everything.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a big part of it. So mortgage interest costs, and that's where interest rates show up most. That fell. The cost there is down 8.6% year over year. That is the largest year over year decline on record. And the record start, the first print for CPI that I have here is in 1949.
Wow, so 70 years then. Yeah,
a long time. Yeah. Longer than I've been around. So it's a notable dampener on price pressures. In the month, there were some other sectors that were soft. Clothing was down 1.8% on the month. So that was weaker than you usually see. And also phone services were down 4.3%.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. That's interesting. That must be the telcos are offering screaming deals to new subscribers, I guess.
There's wild volatility.
Yeah.
There's wild volatility in those numbers.
So you take all of this in your Tiff Macklem, Governor of the Bank of Canada. We're still, I'm sure you would agree, we're kind of early days into this economic recovery. We're only into the kind of the first month of the second half of the year. So what do you do with interest rates? Where you've been very accommodative. They're not moving, right, at the bank? So
not anytime soon. Probably at least a year from now would be kind of the earliest time in which they'd probably consider moving rates. We expect them to keep them on hold until October of next year, so still a ways away. But I expect them to stay on the path that they're on. And what they've been doing is they were engaged in quantitative easing through the pandemic, and they've started to pull back on that. So they cut that a little bit in April, a little bit further in July earlier this month, and we expect them to do that again, cut their quantitative easing program again in October, and then more or less phase that out to some extent in January, which then paves the way for rate hikes later in 2022. This inflation print should keep them on that path. If you look at the core numbers, so the Bank of Canada, as much as they focus on the headline, they also very much look at those core measures, and they have three different metrics. And the one they're focused on right now is called the common component measure. And that one actually ticked down in the month. It went from 1.8 to 1.7% year over year. And that it had been rising kind of slowly but surely. And I think it'll bring them a little bit of comfort that it hasn't continued to keep moving higher. So for now, it's kind of just steady as she goes, I think.
Okay. So I'm curious for economists, when I hear them and when I interview them, and about inflation, they're very curious to see what happens on the wage side of things, because wages are such a big component of doing business. And if there's an increase in, say, wages, a considerable, bigger than normal increase in wages, then that would be a really strong signal that maybe the inflationary environment is changing. This is the consumer price index, is not the consumer wage index. So what do you look at when you're looking for wage pressure?
There's a few different measures to look at, but you can look at as part of the monthly job numbers. We also get wages as part of that. And if you see those consistently accelerating, that increases the likelihood that you're going to see some spillover into prices. If it costs a company more to hire the next person or to keep their labor force employed, keep their employees there, that eventually passes through into prices, especially if those wage increases are persistent. So it's something to watch for sure. We're still kind of in recovery. We're in recovery mode from a labor market perspective from COVID, and that's probably going to last a while longer yet. So
but lots of anecdotal. There's lots of anecdotal evidence though about labor shortages and these kinds of things. So I think a lot of it in Canada and in the U.S. really is we just kind of had a restructuring of the economy, and a lot of sectors that are still under a lot of pressure, services sectors, not fully reopened, not seeing the demand they were pre-COVID. They don't need labor, and other sectors that are seeing huge demand for goods and other warehousing and that kind of thing. They need more workers, but those workers aren't there. They're trying to pull on the services workers that were doing other stuff before who don't currently have jobs, and there isn't necessarily a match in skills there. And so this is something that could last a little bit longer. We'll see on the wage front how persistent that is. And maybe it's just temporary, and when COVID subsides, hopefully soon, people are more willing to go back to work and things open up a bit more. But it's definitely something to watch. Wage pressures are clearly a concern both in Canada and the U.S. You see it in a lot of the survey data. As you mentioned, it is not easy to get workers at this point. But that could change quickly if, again, COVID subsides. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Reitzes. Nice to hear from you.
My pleasure.
Greatly appreciate Benjamin Reitzes, Director, Canadian Rates Macro Strategist, BMO Capital Markets. Inflation rate 3.1%. Sue Sherring watches City Hall at the Ottawa Sun, writes columns about it every week for the newspaper. She joins me next year on City News.
I wanted to give gifts to my volunteers, so I started making, I knew this is a skill I had, so I made chocolate that had a cultural based with a teaching, because culture here is not just a little part, it's the large part, it's the fundamental part of our organization. So then we started doing, just little programs, and we sell a few at a fair. And then we started getting contracts. People were starting to enjoy the chocolates, and started getting more and more contracts all across Canada. Then we decided to become a social enterprise, and we were able to create 2 jobs. And Val is one of our chocolatiers, very talented. We were able to help her with employment.
We started just with a little bit in the kitchen, doing a little bit of chocolate together, and next thing, it's just kind of taken off. And it's great, because I love to be creative, and we get to create a lot and make up stuff, and it's just I just love it. It's just great that we get to make money back for Wabano, and it's helping me out, and we're helping just everybody out, Wabano and everything.
We met a very socially conscious business owner being around town, and we decided to partner, because beans and chocolate, coffee and chocolate are sort of created the same way, and there's and they're very one origin bean, so it was a good pairing together. And it's been a fantastic partnership for both of us.
I was fortunate enough to get introduced to Purat, the head of Wabano Fine Chocolates, through a local networking group. And I was completely intrigued by the social enterprise that she was running, and then I looked at what we were doing, trying to support local business and supporting local communities, and it was a perfect match, and it's been fantastic ever since.
We make every batch by hand. We temper it by hand to get to the consistency it needs to be to make a good chocolate. And one of the best, also wonderful things we did, we've connected with Ed, with being around town, and our coffee bars have been amazing hit. So we're really excited about the connection with our coffee.
News 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
A reader every week. In the Ottawa Sun, Sue Sherring, covering Ottawa City Hall. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob Snow.
How are you these days?
I'm like everyone else. I'm done with COVID.
Done with COVID. But you're double dosed, right? Double dosed?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, good for you, Sue. Good for you.
And you?
Yes, double dosed. Have you been, anywhere you haven't been? Have you been out for dinner or anything like that? Or
no, Rob.
No, you haven't. No.
Not because of COVID, just because I've got like 3 weeks to finish my schoolwork.
Oh, I see. Okay, you're busy. You're busy.
I should be.
Good for you. No, okay. Your column
what
this
about
week.
you? Are you out there?
We have been out a couple of times for dinner. Yeah.
Who's the we?
Well, I'm getting married in a couple of weeks, so didn't you know?
Are you kidding me?
Are you like the last to know or what, man?
Oh my God, Rob Snow.
Yeah, I turned.
I'm pissed off.
No. I don't even think you could say that on the radio. Come on now. All right. Okay. Yeah. Are you there?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm like.
I thought you hung up on me.
I'm like shocked.
You're shocked.
I can't.
Okay. Yeah. What do you think I was going to be a bachelor forever or what?
Well, I don't want to go over some of the conversations we've had over the years.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Sue, nobody.
Rob.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, where am I supposed to go
What do you mean, where are you supposed to go?
for the wedding?
The wedding it's kind of a private affair, Sue. I would have let you know if you were.
No, I'm okay with private.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Rob, I'm so happy for you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's kind of you. Yeah.
You met someone during COVID?
Yes, I did. Yeah. Someone I've known for a long time. I've known this woman for 33 years, so it's not exactly a stranger.
Oh, well, I think I know who you're talking about then.
You've never met. So we dated.
No,
we
I know
dated.
I haven't met, but I've just heard you anyway.
We dated it.
Rob,
Yeah.
no, I'm so happy.
Well, thank you.
No, but seriously, you have to let me crash.
All right, details to come. You did have a column in the newspaper, and we only have 4 minutes to talk about it.
Well, look at your marriage is way more important.
Way more
than my
important.
column.
It should make the newspaper, for crying out loud, right?
Well, I would love to do a column on that.
Is Mayor Jim Watson? Let's focus here. Is Mayor Sue's leads in her column? Is Mayor Jim Watson running for mayor yet again? He's not saying. Okay. So who's on your list, Sue? Who's on your list?
Well, there's a lot of people.
Yeah, it is a long list, right?
It is a long list. I mean, there's Diane Deans. There's Scott Moffat. I mean, Jan Harder would have been on it, but I mean, I think she's willing to say goodbye to the world of City Hall, which I hope she is, because she should.
Okay.
There's, people like Sean Menard, Catherine McKenney, like someone from the left will definitely run.
Okay.
If Watson isn't entering the fray. Like, there's any number of people, really. I mean...
You say that Carol Ann Meehan would have a head start because of name recognition.
She absolutely would.
Why do you say that? Because
I mean, I love the voting public, Ron. But I mean, God, I just called you Ron.
okay.
People.
They know her from TV.
They know her.
Yeah.
So I mean,
and if they don't know her, they think they know her, right? Yeah.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. That's the best expression of all. They think they know her, and if they don't, they still do. So she could. I believe she could actually win. And I mean, I felt when she started out as a city councilor, she had a couple of rocky moments.
Yeah, she admitted it. She admitted it.
Yes.
Yeah.
But she really has proven herself. I'm not saying she's the best candidate, but I am saying I think she could win because people. I don't know that that's a bad thing. She's smart. But yes, I mean...
Yeah, and one of the things that has impressed me as she's kind of grown into the role is that she's not like a hardcore ideologue,
And that's why I think honestly, you're absolutely right. I think that's one of the most fabulous things about her.
Like, she's not a card-carrying member of the Watson Club, but she will vote with the mayor from time to time. Probably the majority of the time, but she's proven that she's not.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would. I mean, I haven't kept track. I would say in the minority of the time.
In the minority of the time. Okay. All right.
But she, I think she votes. She's managed to vote her own way and make it count, which I think is really stellar. Like, you don't see a lot of that. Like, someone just voting the way they want to vote and still not just being like a wisp in the wind. There's an impact to her vote.
All right. Okay. And you think Matthew Fleury might run?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, I know for sure Matthew Fleury has been soliciting people to be on his side. And he would be, I think he's a great guy. I mean, but I mean, he's always going to be perceived from being the left.
Well, certainly. Yeah. But there's somebody else who's impressed me. I've been around long enough. I remember, like, Matthew Fleury beat George Bedard in the election. Are you kidding me? Like, this guy was a lifeguard. He was a lifeguard.
Yeah, but
he pounded the pavement and he out-hustled him.
he didn't work. I mean, I have to admit, like a relationship, I used to work for George Bedard.
Right,
so,
right, yeah.
But
there's somebody else who's kind of, he's grown into the role. And
no, I mean, he's been out there pounding the pavement trying to get support from like senior people in the community. So for sure he's out there. But I mean, I honestly think Carol Ann, I've asked Carol Ann several times in the past. She professes not to have any interest in it, but I honestly think if she wants it, it could be hers. Because I mean, even with her voting record, she's very reasoned.
Okay, that's our time because you gushed over my pending nuptials. So
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV.